This is Haruto, and you can tell he's not having a great day. Every single day at the Magic Academy, he was getting beaten up by bullies. 1 week passed, 1 month, 1 year, and he was still everyone's punching bag. You see that girl? She's his guardian angel, always showing up to save his skin. After a while, Haruto was walking down the hall and ran into the troublemakers again. He immediately thought, here we go again. The crew surrounded him and just stared, noticing something was off about his stance. On the first attack, the protagonist grabbed the guy by the face and slammed him into the ground. The others were shocked, but since it was 10 against 1, they rushed him. The result, everybody ended up taking a nap on the floor. The council president Sumeragi Ryuga was supposed to keep order at the academy, but he's actually the devil himself. On top of being full of himself and bullying people, the guy also uses his power to take advantage of others. When he heard about the fight, he took Haruto to the arena for a duel to avenge his boys. During the fight, Ryuga attacked with a bunch of fireballs, and the protagonist just kept dodging. When Haruto decided to fight back, he pulled the silkiest move you've ever seen. The guy got furious and turned into a demon, literally, but it didn't matter at all. The protagonist crushed him anyway and put him to sleep in front of everyone. Everybody asked the same question: what the hell happened to this guy? The truth is that one day, Haruto came home after being treated like trash at the academy. Out of nowhere, he gets a letter. When he picks it up and opens it, the guy gets sucked in and ends up in a completely insane world. There he finds a water spirit, saying it came from the future, just to warn him that he'll be an incredibly powerful mage in 10 years. Haruto only thought one thing, that he's going to keep being a nobody for 10 more years. Suigetsu tells him to go alone to the Imperial Garden dungeon. When the protagonist returned to his world, he believed the spirit and headed to the dungeon. When he opened the door, he came face to face with a giant diamond. The moment he touched the stone, it turned red and blew a hole in the ceiling, dropping a massive concrete monster from above. That's when he realized he was screwed. He started getting beaten down by the creature, taking hit after hit, and was starting to think he got scammed again. Suigetsu appeared, speaking to him through the letter, telling him not to give up because he was stronger than he thought. But it wasn't doing any good. When Haruto took a fatal hit, a system popped up warning him that the dungeon's secret mission was complete, and his death was cancelled. The guy comes back with an absolutely insane aura and energy covering his entire body. He unlocks space-time magic, but only 30% of his total power. The monster launched the same attack, but this time Haruto dodged it easily, because his body felt way lighter. He activated the skill Quick Body, and dodged every single attack from the monster without even breaking a sweat. On top of the speed, his strength also got a massive boost. And with that strength, the guy took down the creature with a single hit. His level jumped so much that he got hyped up and immediately asked the guide what the next mission was. When the spirit told him to go to another rank D dungeon to save Shinome and the crew from an extra boss that was about to wipe them, Haruto froze because she's his childhood friend and always saved his skin from the bullies. Without thinking twice, he took off through the city at full speed to get there in time. Entering the dungeon, he ran into some goblins on the way, but sliced through all of them without even breaking a sweat and kept running after her. Meanwhile, on the boss floor, Shinome and her party were getting completely destroyed by the massive monster. Everyone was already on the ground. She was the only one still standing, but with 0 stamina left. On the boss's final attack, Haruto arrives just in time and jumps in front to save her, tanking the hit with his space-time magic. Shinome is in shock, not understanding what the hell he was doing there, but she completely lost it when she saw him go head-to-head with the boss. The guy, activating the Quick Body skill, spammed attacks on the creature from every angle, but the monster's body was incredibly tanky and ended up shattering the protagonist's sword. After a few moments, Haruto figured out the creature's weak spot. He went all in straight for the head. The spirit warned him that the sword was broken, but Haruto already had a plan. Right at the moment of impact, he cast the material rewind magic to fix the blade, and drove it with satisfaction right into the boss's face. He was the first one to solo the secret boss. Shinsunome was thinking only one thing: what happened to Haruto? Then she gets up and walks over, wanting answers. As she closes in, she angrily asks how he did any of that. Totally confused, she demands to know what just happened. Pointing at him, she tells him to explain right now, but before that she says she has to thank him for saving everyone. With her face a little red, she loudly thanks him for rescuing her and the others. Embarrassed, Koyu brushes it off and says it was nothing. Then she steps in close and asks what kind of magic he used. The future voice warns him not to say anything about space-time magic. She gives him a suspicious look, and he has no idea what to say. So he changes the subject and asks her to keep it secret, that he saved her. She's stunned by that, and he explains that he doesn't want attention. The voice tells him to keep stalling, and she hears it too. When she asks if that voice was his, Koyu instantly denies it. The entity apologizes, and MC silently promises he'll get even later. Frustrated, he scrambles for something to tell her, so he makes up a story about testing an unfinished sword skill. Then he desperately asks her to keep it quiet for now. Blushing, she seems to think it over, then gives him a teasing look and asks if this is their little secret. Confused by her reaction, Koyu says yes. Smiling, she finally agrees. He lets out a relieved sigh, glad he got out of that. Back at school, Koyu thinks about how he stopped the death that had been waiting for Renan. At the same time, he gained overwhelming power and magic. As the class bell rings, he remembers the past can't be changed, but now he believes his new power can change the future. Just then, a classmate calls him Germ to mess with him. A group of 3 bullies laughs and starts making fun of him. Their leader says he heard the protagonist went into the dungeon and saw him running out. They keep mocking him, saying he even brought out an extra boss. Then the bully says someone got hurt and ended up in the hospital with a huge bill. Grinning, he demands money to keep quiet about seeing Koyu there. Even with the bullies surrounding him, MC says nothing. Annoyed, one of them forms a fireball and threatens him. Calmly, he says he doesn't want them attacking him. The bully is caught off guard, like he can't believe what he just heard. With a cold stare, Koyu repeats himself and calls them pathetic trash. Furious, the leader charges in with his fist raised, but the protagonist realizes that with his boosted abilities, everything is different now. He can follow every move they make with perfect accuracy, so he dodges and counters all their attacks at blinding speed. A moment later, all 3 bullies are on the ground. Shocked, they stare at him, wondering what happened to him. Koyu glares at them and warns them never to show their faces to him again. Then he pulls out a lighter while holding their stuff and asks if they know what happens if they break that promise. Terrified, the bullies just point at him, too scared to answer. With the lighter burning, he makes the warning feel very real. He repeats his polite request, but his look says exactly what will happen if they ignore it. The 3 boys nod fast, too scared to say a word. Koyu sighs in relief and decides to head back to class. Once there, he wonders if the next lesson is the magic element test. The teacher announces it's time to begin and calls MC up. He stands and answers politely before going up for the test. Last time, his magic was almost 0 across the board. Now, as a space-time mage, he wonders what the result will be. As he walks to the front, he thinks about trying out his new magic. Then he places a hand on the magic mirror while the teacher watches. Closing his eyes, Koyu focuses and starts releasing blue energy. His eyes shine brightly as he activates the hidden power. A blinding light bursts from the mirror, leaving the teacher stunned. He freezes, unable to make sense of it. Then, a huge blast of blue energy erupts and blinds the whole class. The force is so strong that the magic mirror cracks apart. In total disbelief, the teacher shouts that it can't be possible. Scratching his head, Koyu bitterly regrets using that much power. Instead of staying low-key, he ended up attracting everyone's attention. Meanwhile, Rizale tries not to laugh at his situation. After class, he hears whispers all through the halls. Students are saying he destroyed the device and has power above rank A. Koyu notices how fast everyone's attitude toward him has changed. He walks home more worn out than usual from all the attention, but then a familiar voice calls his name. He turns, confused, and looks around for where it came from. The voice says it's right there, but he still doesn't get it. Then something suddenly pops up in front of him, making him scream. He has no clue what is going on. A cute pink creature appears, and reveals it was the one talking. Staring in shock, Koyu finally recognizes the voice. He asks if it's really his future self, and why it looks so weird. The doll explains it used space-time magic to take over a stuffed toy. But then it says there's an emergency, and they need to move fast. There isn't time for chatting now. His future self reveals that the Chaos Dragon showed up way earlier than expected. Koyu stiffens and asks about the dragon. Grinding his teeth in fear, he learns it's an extremely dangerous alpha-level monster marked for extermination. The creature explains that it attacked several people and destroyed the local adventurers guild, causing a huge disaster and leaving many injured. That was what happened in the original timeline, and if they don't stop it, another tragedy will happen. Shaken by that, Koyu suggests calling the adventurers guild for a hunting squad. The doll cuts him off and says it's already too late. He is confused, and his future self reveals the dragon is already here. At that moment, the giant chaos dragon appears in front of them with a roar. The protagonist panics and asks why it's not inside a dungeon. His future self explains this species moves around in the open. He realizes that if this keeps up, the school will be wrecked by the monster. Outside, the other students are still walking around, clueless about the danger. A few of them are chatting like nothing's wrong, when the sky suddenly goes dark. They look up, spot the beast, and wonder why it's here. Then the dragon's red eye locks onto them, full of hatred. Panic hits, and the students run for their lives. A blonde girl yells for the non-combat students to get out right now. Right after that, she and her mage squad get ready to fight. The boy recognizes them at once. The student council, all rank A mages. A huge pink magic circle spreads across the ground for a heavy attack. More circles appear around the dragon, closing in on it. Together, the students fire a combined spell at the monster, and their leader vows it won't enter the school. Her pink magic slams straight into the dragon, flashing brightly. But even with a direct hit, the monster doesn't seem hurt at all. The blast lights up the sky, and for a second, it looks like the danger is over. Thinking they won, the team starts celebrating. The blonde leader smiles, sure her squad finished the job. Then everyone freezes. The attack did nothing. The creature actually absorbs the magic and gets ready to strike back. A purple beam shoots from the dragon toward the young mages. In an instant, the whole student council is wiped out by the monster. His future self says that's no shock, they're still just students. The little creature calls out to him, suddenly serious. Then the doll spits pink slime right in his face. He snaps, asking what it's doing. His future self says it's dragon scent. The smell will make the beast focus on him, and ignore the others. Then it says this is his chance to take the dragon down. The monster's red eye turns to him, and the giant beast charges. The doll screams for him to run as fast as he can. He bolts while the dragon tries to crush him from behind. Then he glances back when he hears someone asking if the others are okay. He sees Rena and the rest of the council down on the ground. His future self asks if he wants to keep Rena out of this fight. He says yes, and the creature tells him to go. Moving away lowers the chance she'll get dragged in, so he activates physical acceleration and takes off at top speed, with the dragon roaring as it chases him through the city. He leads the beast all the way to Nakano train station in Tokyo for the fight. Once he sees the place is empty, the creature tells him to hop the fence. After clearing it, he turns and asks about the monster's abilities. The little creature says its element is darkness, and its breath can take enemies out fast. It also says physical attacks don't work well on it, which explains a lot. The creature confirms that, adding the scent only worked because the dragon isn't smart. He nods, and the doll proudly says the 500,000 credits were worth it. Stunned, he asks if that insane number was real. Then he grabs the doll, furious after learning the money came from his own account. He demands to know how his future self got his bank password, even though the answer is pretty obvious. Completely drained, he thinks this whole thing is insane. His partner tells him to relax, they'll make the money back soon. The creature says the cash is just extra. The real reward is a skill stone. With it, he'll gain a strong new time-space magic. He gulps and tells the doll to keep going with the plan. The creature explains that since the dragon is still young, its core will be exposed. Before it can say where, the beast roars and attacks. The hit sends him flying. The little creature shouts for him to watch out, and he sarcastically thanks it for the useless warning. Then the dragon fires a huge purple beam at him. A massive blast erupts and he blocks as best he can with his sword. He barely dodges and says he almost got nailed by that attack, but then he notices something strange and freezes in shock. The pink blast hits the exact spot where he had been standing a moment earlier. Its shockwave tears through everything nearby. When the smoke clears, the dragon lands and looks over the destruction. Sure, it has won as its chest starts to glow. Then a blue flash appears, and a sword slash cuts right across its chest. The dragon is left confused. He explains that what it attacked was only an image of him from half a second earlier. His partner proudly says he dodged with time-space magic. Not wasting the opening, he jumps at the monster's weak point. At last, he sees the glowing core in its chest. He yells that he finally found it. Putting all his strength into one strike, he swings at the core. The blade hits the weak spot dead on, and a bright light bursts out. Still, he says something feels off. Suddenly the dragon's body melts into purple energy and pulls him inside. Totally confused, he has no idea what's going on. Then the monster forms again out of the strange smoke. Annoyed, he complains that his future self forgot to mention that ability. The creature explains the dragon can turn its body into poison, and that he needs to know these things before the fight. He says with an irritated look. The doll keeps talking, saying the dragon uses its energy to build a body. By then, the beast has fully regenerated and lets out another roar. Next, the purple smoke turns into a swarm of bats rushing at him. Shaken, he says there's no way this monster is just a hatchling. His partner confirms it. An enemy meant to appear 5 years later showed up. Now, he asks why something this dangerous appeared so early. The creature guesses he changed the future, and now he has to stop it. He sighs, saying his future self is dumping everything on him. Right then, the bat swarm charges straight at him. With no time to waste, he uses physical acceleration to escape. Mid-air, he quickly slices through one of the dark bats chasing him. The doll notices the small dragons don't turn into poison when killed. The creature tells him to clear the minions first, then wait for his chance. He lands on the tracks and says that's exactly what he'll do. While gathering energy in his feet, ready to finish this, he moves to put the plan into action and end the fight. Then he bursts forward in a streak of light, sword in hand, cutting down every dark creature in his way. He keeps pressing the attack, destroying more of them with each strike. Watching closely, his partner figures this battle should raise his level about 3 times. Panting, he finally pauses to catch his breath and thinks he's cleared out all the smaller enemies. But then the main dragon appears again at the end of the tracks, its core glowing. He's stunned for a split second, and the dragon uses that opening to fire another energy beam at him. A giant explosion swallows the area. The blast hits him head on and hurls him away, but the dragon doesn't let up. It already starts charging another shot. He realizes with horror that he won't dodge in time. Annoyed, he complains that he barely got a second to breathe before another huge attack came. A second explosion flares out, but this time, something is different. He realizes he wasted too much energy on the minions earlier in the fight. At this rate, he only has a few minutes left, so he knows he has to hit the core now. Then he notices something odd about the enemy. The dragon rises higher, and his partner warns that his attacks can't reach it up there. From above, the beast roars and gets ready to fire again. Desperate, he wonders how he's supposed to handle this. Then he glances aside and gets an idea when he notices the stopped train cars. He realizes he can use the train to get the height he needs. Focusing on the cars, he quickly works out a new plan. Those train cars can get him high enough to attack, so he prepares to use them as a launch point. His partner asks what he's planning and warns that things are getting worse. Instead of answering, he grabs the doll tight, startling it. Then he starts running, saying his partner is helping, whether it likes it or not. With quick agile jumps, he climbs from one container to the next. Even from the top, the doll warns he still can't reach the dragon, and he knows that. He squeezes the little creature and says that's why he needs one more boost. Then he hurls his partner like a cannonball toward the dragon, leaving it totally confused. Right after that, he uses time-space magic and summons a chain. The chain hooks onto the doll, leaving it dangling in mid-air. Using his partner like a step, he launches himself toward the dragon in the sky. Seeing him come in, the beast roars and readies a counterattack. Set on ending it, the boy uses the spell again to stop the beast before it becomes poison. The time-space chain finishes forming and shoots at the flying dragon. It wraps around the monster, but the boy warns he can only keep it pinned for a few seconds. Still, he says that's all the time he needs to finish this. His sword shines brighter as he gets ready for the last strike. The blade hits the core dead center, and a fierce light bursts out. The core starts to split under his sword, leaking purple energy. Then the time-space chains snap, and the giant beast breaks free. Even then, the boy doesn't stop. He keeps forcing the sword forward. The dragon lets out a final cry as its body starts falling apart. Then the core breaks into pieces, and the monster is finally finished. A huge blast follows, and his partner is thrown down to the ground. His sword can't take it either, and shatters after the last hit. Breathing hard, the boy finally lets himself relax after the brutal fight. A moment later, a system message confirms he defeated the Chaos Dragon. Relieved, he checks the rewards. The system says he gained 15 levels. He also gets more than 800,000 credits. On top of that, he receives the Chaos Dragon's Fang, plus a recommendation to rank up as an adventurer. His partner congratulates him and says he knew they'd win since they're the same person. Right after that, the little creature gets mad about being used like a trampoline. The boy brushes off the complaint and keeps reading the new notifications. The system tells him his space-time magic went up 20 levels, and he unlocked new skills. He also gets a passive skill that boosts his potential power by 50. Even while angry, the creature admits it can forgive him, since they stopped a disaster. Then his partner hears sirens and realizes the police are coming. He tells the boy they need to leave, and the boy agrees. No one can know they were here. The doll jumps onto his shoulder, and he's surprised they actually agree on something. He wastes no time and hops the fence to get out fast. After escaping, they finally make it somewhere safe to rest. Back at the apartment, the boy sits on the couch with a bag of food in his hand. As he opens a sandwich, he suddenly remembers something. He asks his partner if he needs anything to eat too. The doll lets out a sigh and asks how a cloth doll is supposed to eat. The boy fires back that a talking doll already makes no sense anyway. Then an idea hits him, and he stops before taking a bite. He stands up and leaves the little creature on the couch, making it watch him suspiciously. Then he heads to the table and pours a glass of water for someone important. He sets it in front of a framed photo and greets his dead family. The creature complains, asking him not to make fun of it like that. Turning back, the boy asks why he would do that, and the doll answers that they're the same person. Looking at the little girl's photo, his partner thinks now isn't the time to talk about Rhea. He decides he'll tell the truth once the boy becomes a stronger time mage. Just then, the boy remembers they got a material to make a new weapon. A system notice pops up, showing the Chaos Dragon's Fang as the reward. His partner remembers the sword broke, so this is perfect timing for a new one. The creature tells him to skip class tomorrow because they're making a new weapon. The next day, the boy heads to the Adventurers Guild and feels nervous as soon as he gets there. He's amazed by how huge the place is while his partner climbs onto his shoulder. Smirking, the creature says he can thank him later. The boy walks in and already wants to go home as soon as he's done. Inside, someone calls adventurer number 23, and he realizes that's him. He goes to the desk and says he cleared a dungeon and wants to check the results. When he hands over his card, the receptionist thinks he looks too weak to be an adventurer, but she keeps smiling and says she'll look it up. Then she takes his ID card and gets ready to check the data by putting it into a terminal. His information appears on a hologram screen. The system starts loading all of his adventurer data for re-evaluation. Next, she asks him to put his hand on the screen to confirm who he is and verify his rank. He does as told and waits for the machine to finish. All at once, the attendant's eyes go wide at what shows up. She's stunned to see his rank jump from I to C in one day and can barely believe it. Shaking, she wonders if the machine is broken. The boy notices her reaction is making everyone stare. Not wanting attention, he decides to try his new material restoration skill. With a calm smile, he calls out that the identity check is done. Confused, the receptionist looks again and now sees rank E, wondering what just happened. He acts clueless and asks if there was a problem. Keeping it professional, she gives back the card and says it's nothing, though it still feels strange. He takes the card and thanks her at the counter. Then he reveals he used restoration magic to change the screen, and his partner praises the smart move. The boy says he was just trying not to change the future. Standing by an elevator, he asks the doll where they should go next. The creature tells him to take the elevator to their next stop. Inside, he waits quietly as it goes up. When the doors open, he steps out into a strange hallway. At one door, he finds a notice saying only rank A adventurers can enter. His partner tells him not to stress about it. Then the doll changes into a glowing card and drops into his hand. Startled, the boy asks how it became a card, and it tells him to use it. The boy hesitates, remembering the scanner is part of security, but the card keeps insisting. So he taps it on the reader, and it beeps. The door opens, and he's excited to start making a new weapon and a time item. Then someone asks who he is, wondering if this is some school trip. The boy turns toward the man who stopped him and calmly says no, he's here to synthesize a new weapon. The scientist is briefly stunned by that answer and looks at him with clear doubt. He asks if the boy's adventurer rank is above A, since that's the only way he should be inside. This man is Tokimune Shiroyama, the director of the Weapon Synthesis Institute. Scratching his head, Tokimune says the boy looks more like rank F, but he couldn't have gotten past security otherwise. Then the boy's partner whispers for him to show the item he got earlier, so he explains he found a rare material from a monster and wants to strengthen his weapon. Curious, the director takes the fang to inspect it himself. Using a device over his eye, Tokimune scans it and says the material is excellent. Then he asks if the boy really defeated that monster, and the boy says yes. Satisfied, Tokimune agrees to help and points to the middle of the room. Once he gives permission, the floor starts to shake. A massive machine rises up from below right in front of them. The boy is amazed by it, and the director says it's the most advanced synthesis machine in the country. He explains the material is brand new, so he wants to watch the results closely. With that, Tokimune lets him use the machine for free and leaves the room. His partner offers to walk him through it since he's never done this before. The boy figures that makes sense. Only students rank B and above learn synthesis at the academy. The creature explains the first step is picking the weapon, which will be the sword. Right after that, he has to choose the element to put into the blade. A chart shows how many elements a weapon can hold based on rank, from F to S. Since his sword is rank F, it only gets one slot. The third step is strengthening the weapon with materials like gems or bones. The creature adds that 2 different swords can even be fused into one. For him, the material will be the dragon's fang. The last step is the fusion, and the system will show the power and the time needed. Ready to begin, the boy chooses his sword and places it into the machine. The screen lists the element choices, and his partner grumbles about how few there are. Since there isn't much choice, the creature tells him to pick light, and he does. The slot opens, and the boy asks if the material goes there before placing the dragon fang inside. Then he asks how long the fusion will take, and his partner tells him to set it for 3 years. The boy shouts that it has to be a joke, he can't wait that long. His companion tells him to quit whining, and he reluctantly goes along with it. The machine announces the synthesis has started, and the weapon will be done in 3 years. Suddenly the glowing card flies out of his hand and he yells for it to stop. It ignores him and slips into a hidden slot in the machine. At that moment, a strong blue light covers the whole device, and the boy wonders what's going on. The glow bursts into a blinding flash, and the system thanks him for waiting. A message pops up. The fusion is done, and a new weapon has been born, the Sword of Chaos. Back in the lab, the hero grips his new blade while his partner reminds him this shortcut was a one-time thing. Then the director walks in. He freezes and shouts, asking how a process that should take years ended in seconds. Panicking, Tokimune starts messing with the hologram, trying to figure it out. Seeing his chance, the creature tells him to run. The boy quickly sheathes the sword. He thanks them for everything and heads out, while the scientist yells for him to stop. He rushes out of the building. Outside, the hero catches 2 people talking about the latest news. When one of them brings up the unknown, he pauses to listen. The man says the unknown took down the dragon alone, that this rookie is basically a monster. His friend says every clan will try to recruit him, and the protagonist keeps walking. Nearby, one adventurer dreams about joining Rumika's clan, but the other laughs it off. Confused by all of it, the hero decides the best move is to go home and rest. But the little creature pops up and says they should test the new sword in a dungeon. Smiling, the doll announces their destination, the dungeon of the divine beast Cerberus. Then Cerberus appears in an image, and the ground starts shaking. The protagonist jolts and asks if his partner really just said Cerberus. The next day at the academy, his friend Rinny comes running over, calling his name. She ignores everyone else, and clearly relieved, rushes to see that he's alive. Once she catches her breath, she says she heard the monster that attacked the school went after him too. She explains, she got worried because he never read her messages and didn't show up to class. Then she snaps, saying she was seriously worried. The protagonist asks why she's here. She shoots back that she should be asking him that, then says she came to invite him to a dungeon. He gets it, and says it makes sense. She's the best second-year mage after all. From his shoulder, the creature tells him to stop spilling information, and just move already. The boy agrees. After wiping her tears, the girl smiles and says she's really glad he's okay. The hero apologizes for making her worry so much. Pointing at it, she asks what that doll is. Her eyes light up right away. She thinks the little thing is adorable. Without waiting for permission, she grabs the doll and asks to hold it for a second. She sniffs the plushie and says its smell feels oddly comforting. Then she hugs his partner tight, and the hero can only stare at the weird scene. He tells her she can even take it home for now and bring it back later, which totally shocks her. The doll instantly panics. Blushing with joy, the student thanks him over and over while squeezing the creature even tighter. After that, she says goodbye and heads off. She leaves waving the plushie around in her hands. The hero tells his partner not to be mad, since she brought him back pretty fast. That only makes the creature explode, shouting that he completely missed the point. He smacks the boy on the back. Even then, the doll clings to his clothes like he has something important to say. He finally reveals that this helped him reunite with the childhood friend he lost 10 years ago. His partner thanks the protagonist for making that happen. The boy says he's glad, and the two keep walking together. Meanwhile, a white-haired boy watches from afar, tapping at his phone. With a dark look, he mutters that this must be Haruto, that little germ. Then he smiles and says the Dragon Slayer might actually be fun to fight. The scene cuts to the student guidance office, where someone is already waiting. At the desk, that person slams a hand onto some papers and asks if the story they heard is really true. A gem on the uniform starts glowing as the questioning goes on, full of disbelief. The girl with glasses introduces herself as Yuzuki, the vice president, and presses him about what happened. The protagonist sticks to his story, and Yuzuki keeps staring at him with clear suspicion. She lifts some documents and says a violent dragon attacked the school 2 days ago. Several witnesses, she adds, saw it fly in the same direction he was running. So the boy makes up a story. He says the dragon chased another student, and he barely made it out alive. He tries to leave for class, but the vice president stops him and tells him to wait. As he leaves the room a moment later, the hero wonders why everyone keeps suspecting him. His partner shows him a phone and says the answer is right there on the screen. A post is spreading online. A dragon slayer saved Tokyo from the latest crisis. The comments are full of shock, and people are calling the mystery fighter the hero of the city. The boy asks if the creature can erase the post with space-time magic, but the doll says that's impossible with his current power. With a tired sigh, he walks into class. Then he stops short, stunned by what he sees. The moment he enters, everyone starts whispering and saying he's finally here. As he sits down, he remembers how his classmates always used to avoid him, but today, the whole room feels different, and he can tell something has changed. Right then, Rinte bursts in and cries out that it's an emergency, because he's here. Before she can keep going, the same person from earlier tells her to stop. The white-haired boy steps forward and introduces himself as Ryuga Tsumaragi, the student council president. He repeats the introduction like he wants to make sure everyone heard it. His red eyes shine as he announces he's here to challenge the hero to a magic duel. At once, the class erupts in whispers about the council president calling him out. A few students mutter that this whole thing is insane. Still, one points out that the rookie can't even use spells because he has no magic element. Another reminds them he still broke the magic measuring device. Since that machine also showed traces of unknown material, the hero starts to worry. Then the post about the mystery dragon slayer saving Tokyo gets brought up too. The white-haired president openly accuses him of beating the monster by himself. He even says the boy killed the chaos dragon, the one known for being insanely violent. The protagonist is left speechless, and the president admits he finds him very interesting. With a smug smile, he says this rookie has become someone worth watching. That, he says, is exactly why he needs to crush him, before he turns into a real threat. Smiling at the class, the president reveals that he has also slain a dragon before, so he proposes a duel to decide who truly deserves the title of Dragon Slayer, explaining that magic duels are used to measure student strength. Those results decide the academy's rankings, and the top students earn special treatment. After graduation, the best of them can even become officers in the Adventurers Guild. The only real rule is simple: no magic that causes permanent injury or death. Lower-ranked students are allowed to challenge higher-ranked ones, and those higher students have to accept. The hero then realizes that, because of his low rank, he actually can refuse. In his mind, accepting sounds completely insane. Then the president turns to Rinte and warns her to pick her friends better. He adds that during their next private lesson, he'll teach her something she'll never forget, and he says it in a way that makes his meaning clear. The girl is left stunned. With a sick grin, he adds that he'll also show her the secret to getting into the council. She clenches her fist and says she'll be waiting for his guidance. That makes both the protagonist and his friend visibly angry. The hero grips the pin on his uniform tighter. Then he stands and faces the white-haired president directly. He says he wants to answer the duel challenge, and accepts it. His friend is shocked and instantly worries about what he's doing. Still, the young man adds that he'll fight under one condition. The president finds that funny, and asks if he really thinks he gets to set terms, pointing straight at him. The protagonist says the loser must leave the academy. The white-haired boy answers with a dark smile, amused by the nerve. He accepts and warns that it's too late for regrets now. The hero stares back with calm confidence, like he's already decided he'll win. Later, his partner praises him for standing up to Ryuga like that. The creature even says he's starting to act a little more like him. But the hero knows Ryuga is strong, so he asks what else his friend knows. The doll turns serious. He knows exactly who the council president is. In the future, he explains, Ryuga becomes the manager of the Shinjuku Adventurers Guild. After creating new fire magic, he rises to become one of the 7 great mages. The hero asks if that means he becomes a sage, and his friend confirms it, while adding that Ryuga's personality is garbage. According to the creature, he uses that power to prey on several girls at the academy. He's also great at building factions and gathering followers around himself. On top of that, the president was born with huge talent for magic. That's why everyone calls him a genius mage. Because of all that, the partner warns that the boy can't beat him as he is now, then tells him to check his stats. A screen appears showing Haruto Kujo's attributes. Level 15, Swordsman. Looking them over, the creature says he's grown a lot since the start. Even so, the partner starts messing with the status screen some more. Then he pulls up the rival's numbers for comparison, and the hero is stunned. Ryuga is level 78, rank A, and about 10 times stronger. The boy can hardly believe they can see other people's stats, and the gap hits him all at once. Off in the distance, he notices 2 girls, one crying while the other tries to comfort her. Through tears, the crying student asks what she's supposed to do now. She says she can't use magic anymore, and is going to fail the mage course. Her friend is confused. She used the staff right, and cast every spell correctly. Then the girl wonders if private lessons with Ryuga might fix it. Haruto is stunned. Her friend quickly agrees and says those lessons should solve it fast. That instantly makes Haruto remember Ryuga's nasty grin, and the way he said female students give in pretty fast, once they shut their eyes and do whatever he says. Haruto balls up his fist, furious, and asks to speak with them for a moment. Both girls turn around, confused about what he wants. As he walks over, the other girl recognizes him from the swordsman course. Haruto stops in front of them, and firmly says she doesn't need Ryuga's lessons. He can fix her problem himself. He holds out his hand, catching the girl off guard. Focusing, he recalls what he learned in elemental measurement class. Then he uses his power to see how magic is flowing inside her. Right away, he finds the problem. Her magic circuit is clogged from overuse. So all he has to do is clear the blocked part, and her magic flow should return to normal. He tells her to stay quiet while he helps, then reaches toward her. She's still totally confused. A bright blue glow gathers in his hand. Then he taps her several times, and her friend cries out her name, worried, asking what he's doing. Haruto ignores that, and simply tells the girl to try using magic. Her friend asks if she's okay, and the girl says she feels fine. She brings her hands together, and green magic starts forming between them. A strong burst of power spreads out, shocking both girls. The student happily shouts that she can use magic again. Her friend realizes she's not just healed, she's even stronger now, and the girl beams with relief. She thanks Haruto over and over, and through happy tears says she won't need Ryuga's lessons anymore. That makes Haruto remember the threat Ryuga made to his friend Rini. Later, while walking through the academy, Haruto gets his partner's attention on his shoulder. He asks what he should do to get stronger. There are only 3 days left before his duel with the student council president, so he wants the best dungeon for closing the gap as fast as possible. The creature grins and says it expected this, so it already prepared a map. Haruto asks what kind of rewards the dungeon has. His partner says it offers a massive amount of experience, plus a new space-time spell. It also says this is the perfect place to test his newly made weapon, and he'll even gain a summon, which gets Haruto excited. Going to the dungeon was Haruto's idea, but now he's feeling a little nervous. Staring at a huge army of monsters, he wonders how he's supposed to beat them alone. His partner teases him, asking if this feels like being back in the game. Haruto admits it does, and thanks him, as energy starts glowing in his hand. The creature tells him not to lose, and Haruto confidently says he won't. Then he rushes the horde, swearing to clear out everything in the dungeon. With glowing eyes, he yells that he'll beat them all. An hour passes. Somewhere else, a group of adventurers is battling near a huge elevator. One of them swings at a monster, but his sword shatters on impact. A mage tells him to move and raises her staff to cast. She blasts the Crystal Knight with a strong fire spell. Smiling with confidence, she asks how the monster likes that, but the creature walks out of the smoke completely unharmed. Its status window reveals a black crystal knight immune to magic and tough against physical attacks too. The party panics, realizing none of their attacks can hurt it. Then the knight readies a heavy strike at the adventurers. The two freeze, sure this is the end, but instead of getting hit they hear metal crash against metal. One of the boys stares ahead, confused, then is shocked to see someone blocked the attack. A blade slams into the knight's head. Haruto has arrived and delivers a crushing blow to the crystal monster. The enemy bursts into pieces and the adventurers, stunned to still be alive, thank him for saving them. Haruto warns that more monsters are coming and tells them to leave now. When they ask about him, he says to go on ahead, he'll stay and hold the rest back. Turning toward the crowd of knights, he orders the adventurers to run. They apologize for the trouble and thank him again before leaving. His partner says that was monster number 89. They're not even halfway yet, and Haruto agrees. He says he'll finish this fast and level up at full power. Haruto raises his sword, ready to fight. Then he dashes in, slicing through crystal monsters one after another with quick, sharp moves. His partner reminds him, these enemies give the most experience in the dungeon, but also warns they're still very dangerous at his current level. Just then, blue light flares in Haruto's eyes, chains of energy burst from the ground, and bind all the monsters. The creature explains that the Sword of Chaos can turn this fight around because it's filled with light, a very strong element that lets Haruto cut through the crystal monsters much more easily. His partner confirms he's finally strong enough to fight them head-on. He lands in front of another monster army and plans to take down a bunch of them. Energy gathers in his feet as he gets ready to rush forward, but then he changes his mind. He's not taking out a few, he's taking out all of them. As his resolve sharpens, one monster charges first and unleashes a flurry of attacks, but Haruto blocks them. Blue light fills his eyes again as he prepares to strike. Even while cutting enemies down, he's still surprised by how many keep coming. After the clash, Haruto stands among shattered crystal remains, breathing hard, when an even bigger monster appears. A status screen shows the Black Crystal General has extremely high stats. His partner warns that this thing is boss level. Haruto charges, and his blade crashes against the giant monster's weapon. He quickly realizes he has to end this before the enemy overwhelms him, so he decides to use his sword's element to win. He slips past the general's huge downward strike as dark power gathers in his hand for a counter. Moving behind the monster, he uses the opening to set up his finishing blow, eyes shining bright. Then he brings his sword down in one sharp, powerful strike and cuts the giant down. Even after winning, Haruto is still out of breath. When his partner calls out to him, a sudden blast sends him flying back, and he snaps that now is a terrible time. But the creature starts explaining that space-time magic works differently. It doesn't rely on normal magical elements, but on forces tied to time itself. Haruto can use it because his element is chrono. He complains again, but his partner says battle is the best time to learn. Right then, more crystal monsters rush in. Haruto uses his energy chains again to lock down the enemies, and while cutting them apart, the creature warns him not to drop his guard. Then new hooded monsters appear ahead. Their status shows black crystal sorcerers with high magic resistance. Together, the sorcerers start charging a huge purple sphere. His partner reminds him he's a space-time mage, so even in battle he can learn while dodging their attacks. He tells Haruto to keep focusing on the chrono element. Eyes wide, Haruto concentrates as the attack comes at him. The creature yells for him to take control of time's flow right now. Blue light and a magic pattern flash from Haruto's eyes, and the sorcerer's spell triggers a massive explosion in the dungeon. But Haruto protects himself with a blue energy shield. The shield also stops one of the crystal monsters charging at him. Then he thrusts out his hand and gets ready to fire back. Blue power gathers in his palm. He releases a huge energy shot that tears through every enemy in the room. When the dust clears, all the monsters there are gone. Haruto looks at his hand and wonders if this is what using the flow of time feels like. Smiling, his partner says he's right, and admits Haruto has even more talent than expected. What he just used was the space-time bullet, and its power punches straight through one of the dungeon's armored enemies. Haruto leans on his sword atop a pile of defeated monsters. Even with the win, he's breathing hard and clearly exhausted. Then several screens pop up in front of him, showing he leveled up. His energy returns, and he asks where the next target is. Suddenly the rank B dungeon boss appears. The divine beast Cerberus. The three-headed monster glares at him, growling with glowing eyes. Haruto stands his ground before the rank B boss, Cerberus. His partner explains that this boss has a rare sense of honor and pride. Even so, his partner warns him not to relax for a second against this beast. A screen identifies the enemy as Cerberus, the sacred beast and rank B dungeon boss. His partner says Cerberus is like a samurai, a true warrior. Feeling that pressure, the boy starts struggling to catch his breath. Cerberus watches his every move, and seeing his condition, the creature offers him a potion to help him recover. He takes it, ready to drink and get his strength back. The three-headed beast simply waits, and the boy wonders if it's letting him recover first. That calm, honorable attitude makes him stop in place. He admits this is one strange dungeon boss. Then his partner points out an old wound on Cerberus and tells him to strike there. As the potion kicks in, he feels the monster's heavy aura again and says he gets it. Now he's sure Cerberus really was waiting for him, and he feels like he owes it. Cerberus's tail starts to glow, and the beast suddenly charges in to begin the fight at full force. It slashes with its claws, but the boy barely slips past the killing blow. With his eyes shining, he uses space-time magic to move faster. He rushes in and aims his sword at the old wound. Realizing this is the scar his partner meant, he pours all his power into that weak spot. Even as he lifts his blade, Cerberus lunges. Seeing a bite coming, he blocks with his sword, but one head clamps down on it and stops him cold. Sparks burst out as both sides lock in a dead struggle. Then he spots an opening, steps off the monster's head, and jumps to a better position. With quick movement, he flips over Cerberus to attack from another angle, but one head turns and fires a powerful breath attack at him. His partner yells for him to dodge. There's almost no time, and the blast hits him head-on, setting off an explosion. But it only strikes an afterimage from the past. He escaped with space-time magic. Now angry, he gathers energy for a counterattack. His hand starts glowing, and he drives his magic straight into Cerberus's old scar, shouting as he unleashes everything on that weak spot. The hit makes Cerberus roar in pain. When he lands, the beast is holding his blade in its mouth. His partner stares in confusion and can't figure out what he just did. Then the creature remembers the healing technique he used on the female student's magic circuits. A blue light spreads over the wound, and Cerberus's scar heals completely. The boy says he healed the beast because he wants a fair fight. The doll is stunned and screams that he's lost his mind and is going to die. But he says he had to return the respect Cerberus showed him, even if it's a monster. In return, the three-headed beast tosses his sword back with perfect aim. His partner is shocked. Cerberus returned the weapon like it saw him as an equal. Debt settled, the beast faces him again. But the boy refuses the sword and says he won't need it. He clenches his fists, choosing to fight bare-handed. Taking his stance, he says this isn't about levels or beating a boss. For him, this is just a real fight. Cerberus seems to accept that, and answers with the same respect. Watching from afar, his partner is totally lost, and wonders what is going on. Then the boy rushes in and lands a heavy punch on Cerberus, but the hit isn't as strong as he hoped. Cerberus answers with a sharp, powerful strike. The blow sends him crashing into a crystal wall. Still, he recovers and lands on the crystal, then leaps right back at Cerberus with a counterattack. This time, he smashes a fist into the beast's face. One of Cerberus's heads clearly feels that blow. Still, the beast doesn't back down and snaps at him. Its bite catches his whole arm, and the pain hits hard. He grits his teeth and sweats as he fights to endure it. Then Cerberus starts shaking him violently. Caught in its jaws, he screams in pain. Hearing that, his partner panics and shouts his name in despair. After getting slammed into the crystal again, he's hurting badly, and his partner yells at him to get up. At the same time, Cerberus's three heads begin charging a combined energy attack. His eye shines, but instead of panicking, he calmly says he knows what to do. He declares he'll bet everything on one last attack. Then one of Cerberus's heads fires a golden beam straight at him. The blast erupts into a huge flash that floods the whole dungeon. Wrapped in his own energy, he gets ready for the final strike, hoping his body can handle the power. Then he charges with a shout, unleashing everything at once, and hammering Cerberus with a series of heavy punches. But the beast hits back and sends him flying, injuring his arm. Even through the pain, he glares at it with pure determination. The three-headed beast roars and comes in with its claws to finish things. At that moment, he gathers all his power into one fist. His eyes blaze, and he lets out one shout as he releases all his strength. Another crushing punch slams into one of Cerberus's heads, making the beast cry out in pain from the impact. He leaps up, faces all three heads, and sets up his final hit. With full resolve, he yells that this is the end for Cerberus. A massive burst of blue energy swallows the monster whole. When it clears, the boy is still standing, and Cerberus is down. He pauses and wonders if he's always fought like this. With a sigh, he admits he's always been a musclehead, who charges in without thinking. A system window appears and confirms he cleared the Rank B dungeon. Then he wakes up, and a familiar voice asks if he's finally awake. As he opens his eyes, he still can't make sense of what happened there. His partner watches him with clear worry, waiting for an answer. Still on the floor, he says he somehow managed to beat that powerful enemy. A screen shows he gained 20 levels, and he wonders what other rewards he got. The system says he received a cloak, and he decides to check it later. Then something strange catches his eye, and he freezes in shock. To his surprise, Cerberus is standing right in front of him again. That alone stuns him, but even stranger, the beast now looks like a cute, friendly puppy. He just stares, completely confused by the change. Now the creature looks at him gently, and even wags its tail. Still not really understanding, he slowly reaches a hand toward the three-headed beast. He pets its head, and the beast clearly loves it. The creature says Cerberus likes him, and he asks if this is really the boss. His partner says it was unexpected, but he still got the reward. The boy asks if the reward was the equipment, but the creature quickly says no. Instead, it reveals the prize is Cerberus itself, the best reward in the dungeon. The entity explains that to make a contract, he has to feed the beast his blood. Without hesitation, he cuts his finger, offering the blood to the creature. He holds it out to one of Cerberus's mouths, and a screen confirms the beast is now his servant. His partner says they finally reached their goal. 3 days later, at the Adventurers Academy, someone points toward a figure in the courtyard. Students whisper as they look at the boy, wondering if it's really him. With a bandage on his face, he walks forward wearing a serious, focused look. Suddenly, his friend Rinna sees him in the distance and calls out his name. She runs over and asks where he's been since she couldn't get in touch. He explains that he went through special training for the duel with the president. She's shocked and asks what happened to leave him so beaten up. He answers with confidence that, one way or another, he's ready for the fight. Seeing him like this, she starts wondering if he's even the same friend she used to know. Eyes closed, he stays calm and far more confident than before. From a distance, the council president watches and thinks the rookie had run off in fear. With a cruel grin, he figures the boy only came back to show everyone how pathetic he is. Then the white-haired student and his group walk up to them in the hallway. He loudly announces that the duel will happen right after class today. Mocking him, the president asks if he's ready and calls him Dragon Slayer. The boy meets his eyes without hesitation and says he's more than ready. The president then asks if he still remembers that stupid condition. He answers that the loser has to leave the school forever, but the rival says that's still not enough, and the boy asks what he means. The white-haired student stretches out his hand, clearly showing off. He wants to add 100 million credits to the bet, just to make things more exciting. The insane amount leaves the boy completely stunned. Other students start pushing him to accept the bet. Watching all this, his partner quickly sees what the president is doing. The creature realizes the rival is using the crowd to pressure him. That proves he's just as sneaky as he was in the future. The rival declares that he'll take everything the boy has. With a nasty grin, he adds that he'll make him his slave. Rinna tries to step in, but the boy cuts her off and accepts the 100 million credit bet. The council president smirks, pleased that Haruto accepted. Then he says goodbye, and tells Haruto to be ready for their magic duel later. Before walking off, he turns to Rinna and reminds her of that private lesson in a threatening way. She freezes, too scared to say a word. Seeing that, Haruto tells her not to worry and promises he'll win. After days of brutal dungeon training, he's more than ready for this match. Later, once class ends, Haruto heads down the hall as the duel draws near. Then he suddenly stops, confused by something off to the side. A group of thugs steps out. Their leader says they want to have some fun before the duel, and one of them admits they'll earn 1 million credits each if they take Haruto out. Haruto hears them out and stays completely calm. They mock him, asking if he's scared, and saying tears won't save him. Instead of reacting, Haruto quietly says this actually makes him feel better. The bullies are totally lost. He explains that he's glad his rival is still relying on cheap, obvious tricks. Then he warns them they'll be the first ones to get what's coming. Enraged, the leader points his sword at Haruto and curses at him. He yells at Haruto not to get cocky. Haruto answers with a cold stare, blue light glowing in his eyes. In an instant, he rushes forward. One strike slams the bully to the floor, and Haruto turns to the rest without a hint of fear. He gets ready and mutters that dealing with all of them at once is a pain. Meanwhile, at the arena, the president complains that the Dragon Slayer still hasn't shown up. He asks the judge if that means he can win by default. His followers laugh, saying the rookie probably got scared and ran. The president smiles, sure his lackeys already handled Haruto. In the stands, Rina grows more and more worried. Then someone suddenly yells that the challenger is here. The president and his group spin around in shock. Staring at Haruto, the rival blurts out what the hell he's doing there. Haruto calmly says nothing strange. They had a duel scheduled. The council president can only point at him, speechless. Back at the school, every bully Haruto faced is lying beaten on the floor. With a serious look, Haruto says they can start now. He turns to the judge and tells him to begin the duel. The judge calls the Class 3 student to his place, then announces the challenger from Class 2F, Kujo Haruto. Once both fighters are set, the judge signals the start. The council president grits his teeth, humiliated. He says he doesn't know how Haruto pulled that off, but now he's going to crush him. Clenching his fist, he gets ready to unleash his full power. Haruto shouts back that he should go all out from the start. A massive burst of fire erupts and races straight at Haruto as the president advances. Sure he's already won. With a nasty grin, he asks if Haruto is ready for what comes next. A screen shows Haruto that the spell is advanced fire magic. The president charges in and fires a heavy flame attack. He's certain he didn't hold back, and if it lands, Haruto is done. But Haruto stays calm, blue energy shining in his eyes. His opponent keeps pouring power into the flames to make sure they connect. Haruto notices the fire is warping the flow of time as it moves. Using that, he slips past the fireball. It only grazes by as he keeps moving through the blasts. Even with attacks passing right by him, his face stays calm. Then Haruto uses his magic to leave behind an afterimage and fool his opponent. The president stares in disbelief, shouting that it's impossible. Haruto lands on the burned ground without a scratch. The moment he lands, he senses something wrong. Trusting that feeling, he leaps high into the air. A pillar of fire erupts from below, but he had already seen it coming. His rival can't believe even that double trap failed. While the president is still stunned, Haruto gathers blue energy. Then he unleashes Chrono Ray, a huge beam of power. The blast hits the president head-on and hurls him into the arena floor. The crowd is stunned, wondering how someone with no magic could do that. Reina breaks into a huge smile, saying it was amazing. She realizes Haruto really isn't the same boy he used to be. As he walks forward, Haruto asks if his rival wasn't supposed to be fighting seriously from the start. Back on his feet, the president notices Haruto is still barely hurt. That only makes him even angrier. He roars and releases a huge wave of flames around himself. His partner explains this spell uses direct attacks with flames as hot as 3,000 degrees. Even so, Haruto faces it calmly and starts guiding the flames with his hand. The president yells that this spell burns everything it touches and will turn Haruto to ash. Haruto rushes in anyway and kicks his rival's leg, throwing him off balance. Then he grabs the president's arm and pins him to the ground. With his enemy down, Haruto raises a fist toward his face. For the first time, the president looks afraid, but Haruto shows mercy and strikes beside his face instead. He calmly says he already put out the flames from that attack. Furious, the president points at him and calls him worthless trash. Then he turns to his followers and asks if they know what to do. Their hands glow as they shout his name and move to help. A giant fire crest appears above the president while he absorbs their magic. He smiles as the power pours in, and the future voice notes that this breaks the rules. Haruto asks how much borrowed power he needs just to fight. His rival only laughs, hair blazing with fire. Then his feet change into dragon claws as he uses his secret technique. A burning aura wraps around him. The power erupts into a massive pillar of flame. Haruto is stunned by what he's seeing. Then the fire starts taking the shape of a giant dragon. He realizes it's a summon, and that a normal fight won't beat it. Even so, Haruto stands his ground and says he already knows this won't be a normal battle. The fire dragon attacks him with a blast of flames. Haruto makes a sharp leap and barely avoids the creature's strike. He answers with a blue energy beam from his hand. But Haruto widens his eyes in shock. The monster takes no damage, and he realizes the attack did nothing. Then the blazing creature readies another strike to finish the duel. The giant dragon charges and forces Haruto back. Surrounded by flames, he keeps retreating until there's nowhere left to go. Pressed to the wall, he's trapped. Haruto realizes he has no path left to escape. The dragon closes him in from every side so he can't break free. But with blue light in his eyes, Haruto comes up with a new plan. He spots something odd inside the monster's flow of time. It looks like a crack, a split in that time flow. Haruto thinks that if he can widen that crack, he might still win. Right then, the fire dragon swings a giant claw. It smashes down, but a blue light flashes in its palm and shocks everyone. Haruto appears wrapped in blue energy and stops the attack. He jumps away, having used an image from the past to escape the blow. Sword in hand, Haruto asks his partner to let him use the plushie trick again. The little creature pops out, complains about it, then agrees anyway. Haruto grabs his partner despite its horrified face. Then he throws the glowing creature forward as it glares in anger. Haruto stomps down and uses chains to hold his partner in mid-air, turning it into an anchor so he can swing and build speed. Focused, he prepares to put everything into one attack. Then he rushes the fire monster at top speed. With his eyes blazing blue, he locks onto the weak point. He knows now that it's the same crack in time flow he noticed earlier. Shouting, Haruto raises his sword for the strike. One powerful slash cuts the fire dragon in half. Haruto lands safely as the monster breaks apart into dark flames. The president stares in shock, unable to understand how his attack was destroyed. Desperate, he grabs his hair and loses his mind. He screams that it's impossible, while his followers keep chanting, the magic should regenerate forever. Rushing forward, he demands to know why it didn't heal. He keeps shouting that this goes against every magic rule he knows. Haruto answers with a hard punch to his chest. The white-haired boy crashes to the ground, beaten and powerless. Even the teacher overseeing the duel is stunned, and Haruto asks for the result. The teacher declares the winner, Kujo Haruto. Later, Rina gathers everyone for a celebration. A little embarrassed, he can only thank them. Then Rina hands him a drink and asks him to do the honors. He sits down with the girls, and they all look at him, waiting. Haruto glances at his drink and agrees to do the toast so the party can start. Everyone lifts their glasses and cheers together. After that, the students keep celebrating, eating and drinking around the table. One girl says she's just glad the student council president is leaving school. The others agree right away, saying he was awful and treated people terribly. One of them hugs Rina and says she barely got away from the president's grip. Then another classmate suddenly asks Haruate what happened to the 100 million from the bet. He takes a sip of his drink first. Setting the glass down, Haruo admits he totally forgot about the bet. The girls freeze, then yell that it was a huge waste. Calmly, he says he never cared about the bet money. Hearing that, the girls stare at him with hearts in their eyes and think he sounds amazing. Then one of the students calls out to him by name, saying she wants to ask something important. She asks what his relationship with Rini is, and he just blanks. The question hits so hard that Rini spits out her drink in shock. She immediately snaps at her friend, asking why she'd bring that up out of nowhere. But the girl points out that Haruto picked a fight with the school's top student because of her. That gets the others involved too, and they press him again about what he and Rini are to each other. With everyone staring at him, Haruto starts fumbling over his words. Seeing that, the girls lean in even closer, waiting for an answer. Cornered, he suddenly jumps up and blurts out that he needs to use the bathroom. As he walks off, the girls laugh that he dodged the question. One of them says he really has changed and seems a lot more grown-up now. Rin thinks back and realizes that ever since that day he has always been there for her. She remembers their childhood, when he protected her from a huge monster. Back then he stood in front of her with nothing but a stick. In the present, Rin holds her glass and thinks it's always been like this. Blushing, she remembers they even share a secret now. Her mind goes back to the dungeon, to that dark night when he saved her and defeated the monster. She also remembers him standing in front of her, after pulling her out of danger. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Haruto washes his hands and thinks about the party. Then he gets a message from Rin, apologizing for all the questions. Reading the message, he gives a small smile at her concern. Looking at himself in the mirror, Haruto thinks he hasn't seen people this lively in a long time. Then his expression turns serious, and he grips the sink. He thinks about his family, and how he believed he'd never have happy moments again. That makes him wonder if the future really can be changed by what he does now. Suddenly, the creature on his shoulder calls his name. Annoyed, Haruto tells his partner to stay quiet until they get home. The creature insists it's an emergency, which leaves him confused. Then his future self says, in a grave voice, that the time has finally come. Haruto turns and asks what he's talking about this time. The being says he's finally going to explain why he's really here. Then he reveals the truth. Haruto's little sister, who was believed to be dead, is actually alive, and Haruto instantly pictures Ria. The shock leaves him unable to process what he just heard. In his mind, Ria died in an accident long ago, but the doll explains that she isn't alive in this world. Then it tells him to get ready right away for what's coming. With total resolve, the creature says they will save her together. A series of childhood memories with his sister rushes back to him. Ria smiles brightly as she shows off the red scarf she just made. Curious, Haruto asks if she really made the gift herself. Proudly, the little girl jumps and says she did it all on her own. He can't help finding her adorable. Then she holds out the gift and tells him it's for him to wear. Surprised, Haruto asks if it's really for him, and whether it'll look okay. Rike puffs out her cheeks and asks if he doesn't want it. He quickly denies that and says of course he wants the scarf. That answer makes her break into a huge happy smile. She puts it on him and says he should have accepted it right away. Feeling the scarf, Haruto jokes that the stitching is a little loose. Then Ria reminds him that tomorrow is Christmas. She puts on a fake mustache and declares it's a gift from Rihanna Noel. With a soft smile, Haruto gets what she means and thanks her sincerely for the gift. Haruto then suggests they have a late Christmas party after her ballet recital. Smiling, she adds that he'll have to give her a present too. But Haruto knows he never got to keep that promise, because his family was in an accident. Back in the present, he remembers that none of them ever made it home. A voice calls his name and pulls him out of those painful memories. Back at his apartment, Haruto stays lost in thought about everything that happened. Looking at the shelf, his eyes land on the photo of his family and the scarf Rhea gave him. He quietly apologizes, then asks his partner to repeat what he said. The creature tells him to focus. They have a mission, and it can't fail. Haruto agrees, but asks how Rhea could even still be alive. As far as he knows, everyone died in that accident. His partner asks what he really knows about it, and Haruto says it was a mystery. The creature says the truth goes beyond modern science. That only leaves Haruto more shocked and confused. The small creature explains that a hole in space-time opened in the sky that day. Haruto asks what that means, and it says it was a link to another dimension. It goes on to explain that the plane was pulled into that hole, which is why it vanished from radar before the crash. Even with that, Haruto says it doesn't change the fact that the passengers died. But his partner reminds him that Rhea's body was never found in the wreckage. From that, the creature concludes she alone was sucked into the hole. Haruto's eyes widen as the truth finally starts to sink in. The being explains that place is called the Dimensional Rift, where time and space work differently. So while years passed here, almost no time would have passed for Rhea in there. That means when the hole opens again, she'll return to this world. He says that's why he came from the future. By the time he learned the truth there, it was already too late. The doll grabs Haruto's clothes and begs him to save the girl this time. Nervously, the little creature asks this version of Haruto to do what he couldn't. Haruto stays silent, staring at him, Then he agrees and asks where and when the space-time hole will appear. The creature says it will open above the Sky Castle dungeon at Tokyo Tower. The next day, Tokyo starts another ordinary morning. Haruto heads out for the mission with Reia's scarf around his neck. The doll complains that he bought out the shop's attack items and healing potions. Haruto says he could only afford it because of the money he earned in the Azabu Crystal Labyrinth. Then the creature asks why he's wearing a scarf in June. With a far-off look, Haruto says he's just really sensitive to cold. The partner lets it go, deciding not to push him. Instead, he warns that the gate to the Sky Castle dungeon is at the Tokyo Tower Observatory. In 24 hours, the space-time hole will open 300 meters above the dungeon. When it does, Reia will be thrown out of the dimensional rift. If Haruto isn't there in time, she'll fall to her death. He clenches his fist to get ready. Blue energy wraps around him as he prepares to enter the dungeon. Fully suited up, Haruto vows to save his sister no matter what. When he reaches the site, 2 armed guards stop him right away and order him to halt. They tell him a dungeon gate has appeared, and only A-rank adventurers or higher are allowed in. Hearing that, Haruto decides on another plan. His partner asks what he's doing, and he says there's no time. They're taking a shortcut. Blue energy gathers in his feet as he prepares to move. Then he leaps up and starts climbing Tokyo Tower with boosted agility. The creature says he's improving, but Haruto mutters that his future self is really annoying. He keeps climbing the metal frame at incredible speed. At the top, Haruto peeks over the edge to check what's going on inside. Inside, a red-haired man and his guards study the situation seriously. His partner warns him that a troublesome person has shown up, and Haruto asks if he knows him. The creature explains that he's the head of the local adventurers guild, and very stubborn. He adds that the man will just watch the gate and be useless. Haruto decides they can't wait any longer, and says they're going into the portal. To do that, he moves to smash the tower window and get inside. The noise catches the guild leader's attention, and he asks what it was. He immediately orders a guard to check it out. The guard looks at the window, sees nothing broken, and gets confused. Then Haruto suddenly appears behind him like a blur. With one quick strike from behind, he knocks the guard out cold. The guard drops, and Kuyu reveals he already restored the broken glass with material repair. After explaining how he got in without leaving evidence, he quickly thinks about his next move. The guard, who got taken down, rushes off to warn the guild leader that something is wrong. He reports that an intruder is inside, and he's too strong to handle alone. Irritated, the guild leader decides to deal with it himself. He calls his men over and leads them to face the mysterious intruder. But one guard stays behind, and doesn't move at all. A moment later, he lifts a hand and starts removing his helmet. It's Kuyu in disguise, and his partner praises the trick. MC drops the disguise, walks up to the portal, and says it's time to go in. Then he steps straight into the gate. The second he comes out on the other side, his eyes go wide. He's suddenly falling headfirst into a world turned upside down. That's when he realizes everything around him is inverted. His partner explains the weird rule here. The little creature also says this dungeon is built around the occult, so undead enemies are waiting inside. Kuyu can't help pointing out how strange it is to fight the undead under a bright blue sky. He says it really isn't his thing, but his partner reminds him they planned for this by giving his new sword the light element. That makes him remember choosing the light attribute during weapon synthesis. The creature says that choice was the whole point of his training, and tells him to get ready. With that, Kuyu moves deeper into the dungeon, set to face whatever comes next. Confidence fills his eyes as he gets ready for battle. Then a dark hooded monster appears to challenge him first. The creature rushes in and swings its crystal staff at him. He blocks with his glowing sword and gets ready to strike back. As they fight, his partner explains this dungeon vanished in the future and was never fully explored. The creature says it still knows some things, while Kuyu keeps battling the monsters. Planting his feet, the protagonist braces himself. Then his partner reveals the Sky Castle has 100 floors, with a powerful boss waiting every 20 floors. MC quickly figures out that means 5 bosses total. He checks his phone, sees only 20 hours left, and knows he can't slow down. Then his eyes suddenly widen. A swarm of strange zombies starts pouring in from nowhere. In seconds, the twisted horde fills the area in front of him. They shriek as they close in. Before Kuyu can react, the monsters surround him. The whole pack leaps at once and buries him under their bodies. Then everything goes quiet. A blast of blue energy erupts from inside the horde. From that burst, Kuyu summons the divine beast Cerberus. He says there's no time to waste. They're charging through fast. The monsters screech as the dark horde presses in. With Cerberus at his side, he tears open a path through the enemies ahead. Glancing back, he admits he expected them to be tougher. His partner explains that Cerberus is a sacred beast, so its attacks carry a holy attribute. Kuyu tells Cerberus to keep pushing forward and smash through the horde. Together they race up the floors, cutting down everything in their way. Then Cerberus suddenly stops in the middle of the path. The protagonist asks why it froze so suddenly. He looks up, and his expression turns serious. A dark portal is forming in the center of a round arena. His partner says this is the first boss that appears every 20 floors. Dark energy slowly spreads across the whole area. Out of the black smoke, a golden carriage appears. Then several figures slowly step down from it. Dressed in elegant suits, they make their entrance. One by one they come down the steps. A system screen identifies them as the Fallen Noble Family, a group of powerful vampire undead. Kuyu realizes 3 rank A undead are standing right in front of him. He hardens his resolve. He has to beat them if he wants to save Rhea. His partner urgently warns him to watch out. The enemies are already moving. The 3 vampires rush him at full speed without hesitation. Kuyu calmly tells his partner to fall back, and the creature asks if he's using the guild item. He says yes and readies himself. Then he activates Eye of Time, and his eye shines blue. With that vision, he reads the youngest noble's attack pattern. He can also see the next move of the vampire coming at him. On top of that, he predicts how the family head will strike. Using that advantage, Kuyu gathers blue energy for a counterattack. He unleashes a rain of gold and calcium knives at one of the vampire nobles. The youngest one barely reacts, acting like the blades did nothing. As the 2 close in, MC dodges the next attack. He then launches himself forward. Leaving the younger vampire behind, he turns his golden calcium blade on the second enemy. This time, his daggers land, and the monster actually feels them. With his blue eye still glowing, Kuyu faces the trio without backing down. He charges straight at the family head, who roars in anger. His dagger slams into the vampire's chest, but the master counters and lands a hit of his own. The protagonist blocks with his arms, yet the impact throws him back and he cries out in pain. Even hurt, he places a hand on the ground. Using his energy, he slides farther away to make space. His eye glows again, and he realizes the vampires are exactly where he wants them. Now at a safe distance, Kuyu raises his hand and gives the order to blow everything up. He clenches his fist, and huge blue blasts start bursting all around the arena. The explosion hits all 3 vampires at once, making them scream. Blue and green light fills the entire arena. His partner points out that each knife costs 100,000 credits, and is made from a rare metal. Then the creature complains that Kuyu keeps throwing away expensive gear like it means nothing. It even asks if winning by spending millions in one fight is really fair. MC stays serious and says the fight still isn't over. He explains that he only destroyed their bodies. Now they've come back as ghosts, just like he feared, and normal physical attacks won't work well on them. Still, that revealed their weakness. So he enchants his sword with light. With the blade shining brightly, he rushes at them with everything he has. Shouting as he attacks, Kuyu swings his sacred sword at the ghosts without holding back. Then he uses Chaos Meteor, calling down several beams of light. The blast lights up the arena and wipes out the ghosts in one strike. A system screen confirms the kill and shows that he earned plenty of rewards. After the fight, a staircase of light appears and leads to the next floor. Kuyu wastes no time and heads down the steps to keep going. With his glowing eye, he swears again that he'll save his sister, Rhea. By the 40th floor, Cerberus lets out a fierce roar, but instead of turning on him, the beast charges off in another direction. Cerberus is actually attacking that floor's boss, the undead Queen Lamoya. Once the fight is over, the 3-headed beast calmly returns to Kuyu. The monster that looked so terrifying a moment ago now licks his face like a puppy. The protagonist pets Cerberus, and jokes that it feels more like a pet than a divine beast. They push on toward the 50th floor when his partner suddenly tells them to stop. Cerberus obeys at once and halts. Riding on his new companion, Kuyu asks why they stopped in front of a wall. His partner insists there's no mistake, leaving MC confused, then tells him to use Eye of Time and look closely at the wall. Blue light flares in his eyes. The moment he looks, he's stunned by what he sees. With that vision, he discovers a hidden room that vanished from the original timeline. Then the doll changes into a card and tells him to place it on the wall to open the passage. He does as told and places the envelope into a crack in the wall. Before going in, Kuyu tells Cerberus to wait outside. Inside, he finds a huge blue crystal floating in the air. Still cautious, he asks if this is another trap like before. His partner assures him it isn't. A system screen appears and identifies it as an acoustic crystal that unlocks hidden abilities. When Kuyu touches it, blue energy flows from the crystal into his hand. The crystal suddenly shatters, flooding the room with blinding light. The system announces that he gained new space-time magic. It also says his potential has been unlocked, and the creature is shocked he got Avatar Replay. The protagonist asks what that means, but his partner says it's better to test it in real combat. On the 60th floor, they run into the boss Zombie Buildup Lord of the Flies. The doll explains that it flies, spits a liquid that melts everything, and can regenerate. Annoyed, Kuyu complains that it's just reading off the boss's traits. With his eyes glowing, he gets ready to face the new boss. The monster attacks first, thrusting its stinger at incredible speed. It looks like the strike went straight through MC's chest. Then, in an instant, Kuyu appears behind the confused monster, and his future self realizes he's already using his new combat skill. A blue copy stays in place, leaving the monster confused, while the real hero rises into the air. As Beelzebub goes after the fake, he reveals his new spacetime skill, Avatar Replay. While the monster attacks the clone, the young man uses fast body to strike back. With his body sped up to level 3, he lines up a sharp counter. Blue energy wraps around him, and in a flash he's behind the monster. He pushes off so hard that the ground cracks under the force. He explains that Avatar Replay makes a copy of his past self, letting it stand in for him and fool the enemy. Now the hero and his copy get ready to strike together. With swords drawn, the real one and his copies get set to attack. More versions of him join the battle all at once. Together, they charge in a perfectly timed assault on the giant monster. He and the clones unleash Chaos Meteor to end the fight. The copies box the monster in, leaving it nowhere to run, but Beelzebub fires back with a huge wave of poison. The blast slams into the clones, and the corrosive venom starts melting them away. The real hero dodges in time, but every copy is wiped out. Then golden beams appear around the creature. Those strikes lock the monster in place, and it can't move at all. That's how he finally brings the creature down. His partner cheers and calls him a master ninja, but the young man tells him to quit it. Looking forward, he says only 2 bosses are left now. He steps forward and another staircase appears. But all of a sudden, a fierce headache hits him, and he has no idea why. The pain makes him stumble, and his partner panics at the sight. A moment later, he collapses, and the plush creature cries out his name. While he's out cold, memories start flashing back. He sees himself 3 years earlier, much younger, when a little girl with a ballet book asks him for something. Arms folded, he clearly isn't sold on her request. She promises that if he says yes, she won't give up halfway. With an adorable look, his sister begs one more time. Her insistence finally gets to him, and he sighs like he's giving in. He asks if she really wants to do ballet, and means it. She lights up with a huge smile and happily says yes. At last her big brother agrees, and tells her to pick the slippers. Overjoyed, she starts bouncing on the sofa. Then she sits beside him and flips through the book to choose a pair. Seeing how happy she is, he smiles softly. After that, the two of them head to her dance class. Inside, the other girls are already getting ready and chatting. The girl shows up in her ballet clothes and says she's ready to begin. The other girls welcome Ri and say they'll all do their best. Hearing her name, she turns toward the door in surprise. She smiles and waves at her brother from inside the room. He waves back and notices she already seems to fit right in. Her new friends tease her about her brother watching. That makes the little girl blush. Soon class starts, and everyone takes their spots. At first she's a little clumsy as she tries to copy the moves. Even so, she keeps working hard to learn. Up on her toes, she does her best to move with grace. Before long, a smile spreads across her face. She's really having fun now. Watching her, her brother realizes she's enjoying class a lot. When class ends, she says goodbye to her new friends. On the way home, she says the lesson was really fun. Ballet is hard, she admits, but she's going to keep trying her best. He listens and tells her he's glad to hear that. Then she seems to remember something, and turns serious. She stops walking and calls out to her brother. Then she asks if the slippers and lessons cost a lot. Smiling, he says it was nothing, and she doesn't need to worry. But she still looks uneasy and grips her bag tighter. Since their parents are away at a conference, she figures the money must have come from him. He's caught off guard, realizing his little sister figured him out. Still, she says it's okay, and tells him not to worry. He asks if she had fun at ballet today. He tells her he's happy she found something she truly loves. With admiration in her eyes, she looks up at him and says his name. Then she holds out a small gift box to thank him. Blushing, she thanks him for everything he's done for her. He answers with a warm smile. Suddenly she throws her arms around him and says she loves him. Then she runs ahead, saying she'll cook to prove it. Back in the present, that memory leaves him with a determined look. He wakes up riding the 3-headed beast he summoned. His partner asks if he's finally awake after passing out. The young man asks if he really fainted, and the creature says he burned through too much energy. He thinks about using a potion, but his companion says that's already handled. The creature explains it healed his wounds, just not the mental strain. Eyes wide, he quickly asks how much time is left. His partner tells him only 5 hours remain before the duel. Even exhausted, he gets up and says they're moving. Thinking of his sister, he promises they'll make it to her ballet class one more time. The doll watches his resolve in silence, then says one boss is left before the dungeon's final one. Still, it worries he won't hold out much longer at this pace. With a serious face, the little creature decides it has to use its last option. He reaches the 80th floor of the Sky Castle dungeon. There, the Acid King mummy appears, but the monster is crushed at once by powerful blue energy and bursts into crystal-like pieces. The attack came from the hero, using gravity magic as he controls the force with one hand. A system window pops up, confirming the boss is dead. He gains 2 levels, gets battle ready again, and his swordsman skill rises by 4 points. Even after winning, he's completely drained and barely staying on his feet. Cerberus comes over, and the young man smiles, thanks his loyal partner, and pats its head while the doll watches. Then a system window asks if he wants to use an elixir. He picks yes right away, and a green glow restores his energy and injuries in an instant. Even after healing, he still feels. He refuses. There's no time, because only 3 hours remain before his sister comes out of the space-time hole. With that goal in mind, he heads straight for the top floor. Soon, a system notice says he has reached the 100th floor. It also declares the Sky Castle dungeon cleared. Taking in the view, he says they've finally made it to the top, and his partner says it's time for the last boss. The creature explains that once the enemy is beaten, he can reach the exact spot where the space-time hole will appear. Touching his scarf, he lets his blue eyes glow and says he's ready to keep fighting. Then he heads down the long hall toward a throne. On it sits a giant skeleton covered in a dark purple aura. A window identifies it as the Soul Reaper, god of the underworld and the dungeon boss. The sight makes the protagonist tense up, while his partner looks seriously irritated. The little creature admits this monster isn't even in the future database. Then the boss speaks, asking why only one human came. The young man is stunned that the creature can talk. The monster praises him for making it this far alone. Then the Soul Reaper forms a dark weapon with purple magic. The hero answers by summoning his own sword in bright blue energy. With weapon in hand, he squares off against the giant skeleton and gets ready for battle. The underworld god vows to place the deadliest curse of all on him. At that, his partner realizes the enemy's weapon is in the database. The screen identifies it as the Divine Scythe of Curses, a staff that uses illusion magic and nasty status effects. But the protagonist doesn't care and says it doesn't matter how strong it is. With his eyes blazing blue, he swears he'll beat the monster right now. Using his enhanced sight, he spots the weak point in its chest. Then he boosts his body acceleration to level 3 and attacks. He rushes the Soul Reaper at incredible speed. The underworld god is shocked by how fast he is. The protagonist slips past the giant scythe with amazing agility and keeps moving in. The dark blade crashes down with terrifying power and barely misses him, smashing the floor apart. Even so, the hero escapes without a scratch. After dodging, he jumps over the monster to find an opening, gathering blue energy in his hand for a counter. He's aiming straight for the glowing core in the skeleton's chest. Then he leaps up and prepares a crushing strike at that weak spot. His blade goes for the weak point, but the monster blocks it. A burst of purple power explodes between them, but it does nothing. To his shock, the god of the underworld is still standing without a scratch, and already getting ready to strike again. The giant skeleton swings its scythe and sends a heavy wave of energy at him. The blast comes straight at the hero. Then the Soul Reaper realizes it only hit a decoy. The real protagonist is elsewhere. A second later, the real hero appears above the monster, ready to land a killing blow. Right then, he triggers his skill and yells the spell's name, calling out paralyzing chains. Blue chains appear and coil around the giant skeleton, locking its body in place. Sword raised, he moves in to end the boss for good. But the god of the underworld laughs and says a curse like that can't hold a divine being. The blue chains start cracking under the Reaper's strength. Seeing that, the protagonist is stunned. He never thought his skill would fail like this. The chains burst apart and the creature breaks free with ease. Its red eyes flare as it glares at him and gets ready to hit back. Purple energy suddenly grabs the hero and his partner cries out in panic. Caught off guard, he still manages to dodge at the last second before the hit lands. His hand reaches out as he drops out of control, shaken by the near miss. He regains himself and blocks another attack from the huge skeleton and its giant scythe. The monster mocks him for dodging twice and points out how much he trusts his speed. Then it calls him a lesser being with no wings, forced to crawl, and says it will crush his legs first so he can't move. Next, the enemy uses a skill called Dimension of Curses, and the world around him starts warping. Everything flips upside down, and he begins falling upward toward the boss. Now stuck in the inverted sky, the two face each other. The protagonist tries to understand what just happened, while the monster only grins. He looks down and sees the dungeon floor splitting apart. As it breaks away beneath him, he bitterly thinks he climbed 100 floors just to fall now. The skeleton warns that he can't move and raises its scythe to attack. Seeing that twisted smile in the upside-down world, the protagonist panics. Even so, he summons a blue energy dagger and gets ready to fight back. The skeleton's strike slams into his dagger. The blast hurls him backward. He keeps falling through the twisted sky until he notices a wall and realizes this whole space is a trap. Without wasting a second, he drives his blade into the wall to stop himself. After breaking into it, he steadies himself on floating rubble and locks in again. The skeleton is clearly surprised by that move. Facing the enemy, the hero forces himself to think through what's happening. Then it clicks. This endless fall is just an illusion made by the monster. He knows he got caught in the spell, but now he has to figure out how to break it. He tries to focus, but the skeleton gives him no time. Dark energy gathers as the monster lines up another attack. Then it opens its mouth and fires a pink beam at him. He barely avoids a direct hit, but it still cuts his leg, and dark energy sticks to it like a curse. The monster tells him he'll be its next test subject for magic. It explains that the hatred of the dead will slowly eat away at his body. Then the skeleton wonders what will kill him first, the hate of his own kind, something even worse, or the underworld scythe that will finish him for good. The protagonist knows he has to escape this space fast, but trapped by the spell, he can't see how. The skeleton doesn't let him think, and lifts its giant scythe for another deadly strike. With a cruel smile, it says goodbye to the human and unleashes a final attack. A massive purple wave rushes toward him. Through the pain, he wonders if this is really the end. Then he remembers his sister calling out to him. Using the last of his strength, he whispers her name. The skeleton smiles, ready to end the battle, but blue chains suddenly bind it in place, leaving it confused. The hero is stunned by the sudden change and has no idea. To his surprise, it was his little partner who cast the chains. The creature says this was its last option to save him. Then his partner starts shining with a strong blue light. Its whole body crackles with powerful blue electricity. A blinding burst follows, filling the dungeon with blue light. Eyes like the protagonist's appear, and a hooded man with an energy sword stands before him. In a different voice, the figure calmly says it would be bad if the protagonist died here. Then his future self uses a powerful spell to rewind everything around them. The protagonist is left in shock as time starts moving strangely. He quickly realizes it's flowing backward, and the monster's attack is pulled away. Then everything shifts, and he finds himself dropping through a strange space. He swings his sword into an invisible barrier, and cracks spread through it. Floating there, he wonders where he is. Soon the arena starts breaking apart, and pieces of the dungeon drift through space as everything rebuilds itself. He lands safely, and faces the skeletal monster again. Both he and the creature are thrown off by the sudden change. The enemy wonders if that was a divine-level spell. Then the mysterious figure lands beside the protagonist. It's his older self, who says it's been a while since he looked like this. The monster snaps in anger and shouts that the introductions are finally done. Purple energy pours out as the skeleton summons new creations. From it, strange angels with creepy smiles begin to appear. Seeing the army, the future version says they're rank A or higher. Then his older self tells him to stand up. He'll handle the minions. The protagonist is shocked he's supposed to fight the boss alone, and says a divine rank enemy is too strong to beat. But his older self says he now understands and controls space-time magic. With a smile, he reminds him that they're the same person. Hearing that, the young hero finally understands what he needs to do. He agrees and gets ready for the big fight. Then the future self says he'll explain the plan to bring the enemy down. The two get ready while the monster watches from afar. Pointing at them, the creature orders its army to attack without mercy. At once, all the dark angels rush toward them. Then a huge blast of blue energy slams into the monsters. The duo charges in with everything they have as the battle begins. With a grin, the older version steps up to the swarm of dark angels. He uses gravity territory and pins all of them in the air. The dark angels freeze, unable to move or strike back. Floating there, he taunts them and dares every last minion to come at him at once. Meanwhile, the hero rushes the main boss with his sword. On the way, he has to weave past a few minions that break free. Even then, he never slows down and keeps charging the skeletal monster. His future self adds an acceleration field to boost him. That sends the protagonist surging forward at incredible speed, and he thanks his partner for the assist. As he closes in, the monster calls him a filthy lower life form. The hero glares back and tells it to drop dead. The boss uses Dimension of Curses again to stop his attack, but the hero says he's already seen this trick and won't fall for it again. He breaks through the barrier, and the monster is stunned. His eyes blaze as he charges with a shout. Enraged, the enemy calls him a lowly fool for daring to challenge it. The young man decides there's no point in going around anymore. He has to attack head-on. So he rushes straight in, and their weapons clash. His sword crashes into the creature's energy, sending out huge blasts. Then the hero unleashes Chaos Meteor. The attack lands cleanly, and the monster screams in pain, but the enemy fires back with the Blade of Curses to kill him. The strike hits the young man head-on, and he cries out as the blow tears through him. The impact throws him back, blood pouring from his mouth and chest. Then the monster sees several avatars of the protagonist appear, and can't understand it. Using that skill, the hero spreads out the damage he took. Even badly hurt, he throws himself forward for one last desperate attack. With glowing eyes and a battle cry, he swears he'll bring the enemy down. His strike slams into the monster and sets off a massive explosion. He rushes in again, catching the Soul Reaper off guard. This time, he puts every bit of strength he has left into the attack and drives his sword into the creature's heart. The Soul Reaper lets out a sharp scream, and for a moment Haruto thinks he won, but then the monster smiles, and the sight sends a chill through him. He suddenly realizes it doesn't have a real heart, and before he can react, the creature cuts him cleanly in two. His future self shouts his name in horror, while the Soul Reaper laughs at them for thinking its weak point would be something that simple. It mocked them, saying underworld gods can fake a weak spot to fool their enemies. Then it sneered at how dumb humans were as Haruto's sliced body hit the ground. The Soul Reaper laughed in victory and sent its little monsters forward. It also mocked Haruto's future self for being the only one left. Shaken, Haruto's future self muttered that it made no sense and asked what the real weak point was. The Soul Reaper roared that gods have none. Then it bragged that if it did have one, it would be something unreachable, the forbidden crown of Hades, tied to its very existence. After that, it ordered the monsters to rush Haruto's future self and said it wouldn't hear any begging. But his future self stayed calm and asked Haruto if he heard that, because now they knew what to do. A second later, the real Haruto appeared right behind the Soul Reaper, with his sword aimed at its head, saying he got the message. The Soul Reaper whipped around in shock, yelling that it was impossible since it had just cut him in half. Haruto revealed that the one it killed was only a copy. When the Soul Reaper struck, he used Avatar Replay to make a double rush-in, while the real Haruto stayed on the ground. Still confused, the Soul Reaper shouted that a direct hit from divine power should have killed him. Haruto admitted it was a deadly strike, but his future self had used a space-time skill called rollback right before it landed. It also only works once on the same person. Luckily, their plan went exactly right. The Soul Reaper lunged at Haruto, but his future self cast Stop Chain level 78 and locked it down. Then he asked Haruto if he was ready for the grand finale. Haruto faced the Soul Reaper and confirmed that the crown above its head was the weak point it mentioned. His future self jumped in, saying they were about to wipe it out for good. He promised they'd crush that creepy head into pieces. Haruto took a breath, and a memory flashed through his mind, his little sister thanking him and saying she loved him. That memory gave him a huge boost, and with his resolve back, he released all his power. With one massive swing, and moving at blinding speed, hacked the head into tiny pieces until nothing was left. Then the body dropped, finally beaten. As it fell, all the smaller monsters vanished with it. Haruto landed, and a system message appeared saying he had defeated the underworld god, the Soul Reaper. He earned 120,000 experience points and 35 million credits. Haruto looked to his future self and said the target was down. Right then, a staircase appeared, leading to the top floor. His future self said it was finally time to go, and Haruto walked over in agreement. Then Haruto looked him over and, a little worried, asked if that was really how he'd look when he got older. His future self jokingly threatened to smack him, and Haruto quickly said he just meant it would have been nice if he had helped sooner. As they climbed, his future self reminded him he was only meant to step in as a last resort, and things were more complicated than they looked. He cut it short, saying they didn't have much time before the space-time hole opened, then grabbed Haruto's hand and told him they needed to hurry. They reached the top floor of the Sky Castle dungeon, and his future self immediately looked up and shouted that it was there. Both of them watched as the sky began to crack and burst with energy. In the middle of it floated their little sister Rhea. His future self said the hole would stay linked to their world for another 9 minutes and 48 seconds, so there was no need to rush. As he flew toward it, his future self suddenly remembered something and activated the sped-up field skill, sending out rings of energy as he rose. Haruto called out, and the two of them raced upward. As they got close, Haruto shouted for Rhea. She opened her eyes, saw him, and reached out while he yelled that he was there, but his future self told him to stay calm. Inside the space-time hole, normal cause and effect didn't work, so only space-time magic could affect it. Then he flew into the hole and told Haruto he'd push Rhea out with magic, so Haruto had to be ready to catch her. Getting behind Rhea, his future self poured all his space-time power into his hands and shoved with everything he had. Rhea drifted toward the edge of the hole, and Haruto waited, his sight going blurry from the strain as he tried to see her. She called him Big Brother, but then to his horror, the hole began to close. Haruto shouted to his future self, asking what was happening. Just as shocked, his future self yelled back that it was closing far too early. Panic hit as he saw how fast it was shrinking, with Rhea close to getting trapped. In desperation, his future self used all his remaining power to hold it open, and screamed for Haruto to pull Rhea out now. Haruto shouted back that he would, then used his own space-time magic to draw her toward him. As Rhea neared the opening, his future self struggled to stop the hole from collapsing. He warned that if Rhea got caught in it, she'd be torn apart, and even if she got free, she'd die from the fall if Haruto missed her. Haruto locked in, and answered that he understood. At last, Rhea cleared the hole and started to fall. She reached for him, and he reached back. He caught her hand and pulled her into his arms, then shouted for his future self to hurry back, but no answer came. Confused, Haruto asked what was wrong, and told him to hurry. His future self only smiled and said this was where they said goodbye. Completely confused, Haruto asked what he was talking about. His future self explained that he had reached his limit and couldn't keep this form anymore. He said he had burned through all the Chronos factor inside him with that last move and no longer had enough power to return. Haruto tried to speak, but his future self cut him off, saying his name in a serious voice. He told Haruto he hadn't been the best student, always whining and making dumb mistakes, and even when he started improving, his emotions kept causing more trouble. Even so, he had no regrets fighting beside him, because Haruto was kind and deeply human. Then he told him the space-time hole would never open again, so this was truly goodbye. Crushed, Haruto begged him to wait, and said this couldn't be happening. But his future self put all his hopes on Haruto, telling him to save their world and his place in it. Holding back the pain, Haruto tearfully promised he would carry that burden. His future self gave a soft laugh and reminded him it was a promise. Then he turned to Rhea and gently told her she was safe, now calling her a young lady, but Rhea asked if he might be her brother too. That caught his future self off guard, and he remembered how warm, smiling softly, he welcomed her home. Then the space-time hole finally closed, and Haruto's future self disappeared with it. Once it was fully gone, Haruto clutched his chest and cried out in pain, grieving someone who meant so much to him. In that moment, Haruto won a huge victory, but suffered a huge loss too. The day after clearing the Tokyo Tower Sky Castle dungeon, Haruto entered his classroom in the Adventurer Cultivation Agency division. He was stunned when all the girls rushed over, excitedly saying they had been waiting for him. Looking around in confusion, he noticed even third-year seniors were there. One girl stepped forward, and on behalf of the Ryuga Victims Association, thanked him from the bottom of her heart. The others joined in, all talking at once about how relieved they were that the disgusting sex offender Ryuga had gotten beaten so badly, and now they could finally sleep without crying. Another girl pointed at Haruto, called him their savior, and asked who could have given him a nickname like God of Plagues. Embarrassed, Haruto told them to stop, while thinking all he wanted was a quiet, peaceful life. Then someone else came up to him, and he was surprised to see Yuzuki. She bowed and said that as the student council's representative, she wanted to apologize for what happened with the president. Haruto told her not to worry, since it had nothing to do with her. Still, she said she couldn't ignore it, especially because she was about to become the new student council president. Looking straight at him, Yuzuki asked if he wanted to help the school from the inside, leaving him confused. She explained that she was recruiting him for the student council, and wanted him to lead the council's mage security guard. The whole class got excited at the offer, but Haruto refused, saying he was fine where he was. Yuzuki was stunned. She grabbed his hand and begged him, saying she'd do anything if he said yes. Ren was shocked by how bold Yuzuki was being with Haruto, and could only stammer his name in disbelief. Akemi tried to calm Ren down, and told her it was okay. Another girl reminded Yuzuki that class was about to start, and gently pulled her away from Haruto. Before leaving, Yuzuki shouted that they'd continue at lunch, and told him to stay in the classroom, using her new authority as student council president. Haruto just sighed, and scratched his head. When lunch break came, at lunch, Haruto hid out on the rooftop and checked his system. He was level 98, still rank C, and the system was telling him to move up. Swordsmanship had reached level 64, space-time magic was 82, and his other stats were high too. He also found 5 new spells, and thought that with numbers like these, he almost felt unbeatable. After everything he had fought, that feeling made sense. Then he saw his credits, 43 million, way too much money for a normal high schooler. Right as he bit into his burger, he heard people rushing onto the roof. Yuzuki came in shouting, asking where Haruto was. The girls searched around, but they couldn't find him. Annoyed, Yuzuki reminded them she had told Haruto to stay in his classroom. They decided to check the gym, and left without noticing him. Haruto just kept eating and watched from above. After dropping back down, Haruto knew he needed a way to deal with this kind of thing. If not, life was only going to get harder. He turned to ask his future self for help, but the moment he looked over, he remembered that future Haruto was gone. The pain hit him all over again. After school, Haruto went back to his apartment, carrying a bag of food. He climbed the stairs and entered the door code. As soon as he opened up, Ri called out that he was late, and she'd been waiting forever. Then she happily welcomed him home. Smiling, he answered, "Big brother's home." Ri showed off the dinner she made, proudly calling it a homemade meal from his cute little sister. Haruto was honestly impressed. Then she noticed the bag, and asked if he had stopped by the convenience store. He looked down and realized he had bought it without even thinking. Ri gently told him not to waste money on random stuff, and he admitted she was right. She reminded him they were living together now, so they needed to save. That caught him off guard, but he agreed. He promised he'd be more careful. Ri stepped closer, gave him a soft smile, and welcomed him home again. Haruto froze for a moment. It brought back the memory of his future self saying those same words to Ri. He smiled and answered, "It's good to be home." He set the bag on the table when Ri suddenly remembered something. Before dinner, they stood in front of the family photo. Ri thanked their parents for raising them and asked them to keep watching over them. Haruto looked at his little sister and smiled. Then Reese noticed the scarf she had made for him. She was shocked he had kept it all this time. He just said, "Of course I did." She pointed out it was June, right in the middle of summer, and he joked that he gets cold easily, like she already knew. After changing clothes, he sat down with Ria, as she proudly served her homemade dinner. Haruto thanked her for the meal and took a bite. She quickly asked if he liked it, and he said it was really delicious. Ria still seemed unsure this was real, and asked if she was truly home. Haruto told her yes, she really was. He also explained that he had already filed the papers with the government to prove his little sister was alive. Ria thanked him, then said losing 2 years meant she had a lot of catching up to do with her studies. Haruto added that included dance academy too. Worried, she asked if they could afford that. He told her not to think about money anymore. Not now, not ever again. Even in the far future, he said, she could still go to dance academy as a granny. Reish laughed and asked what that was even supposed to mean. A moment later, she looked at the teddy bear and asked if it was true that they owed all this to his future self. Haruto said yes, they had a lot to thank him for. Then he remembered his future self's last request: save the world. Staring at the teddy bear, he wondered where he was even supposed to begin. Then remembered something in her pocket. It had been inside her clothes when he saved her. She pulled out a small glowing cube and asked if he knew what it was. Haruto was shocked. It was a message cube. As soon as he turned it on, bright light burst out. Then the teddy bear, holding the last trace of his future self, appeared through it, leaving Haruto stunned. The future Haruto spoke through the bear, saying that if this message was playing, then he was already gone. He guessed Haruto was probably lost and wondering how to save the world without him. Haruto listened in shock as his future self boldly said that, as the strongest unmatched warrior, of course he had prepared for this. Then, sounding a little smug, he asked if Haruto agreed he was amazing and said he could praise him if he wanted. Haruto could only think that even a recording didn't stop him from being full of himself. Then the future Haruto got serious and said he was sending over letter version 2 to Haruto's storage. He told him to use it to save the world and asked if he understood. Savior. After that, the message cube shut down, and a letter for becoming a Spacetime Mage version 2 was placed in his storage. The system even showed a note from his future self, telling him not to slack off just because no one was there to watch him anymore. Seeing that message cheered Haruto up and he smiled. Rize noticed right away and asked if people really called him a savior now, saying it sounded pretty cool. He brushed it off and said it was nothing, just the result of a lot of stuff happening. Meanwhile, at the Adventurer Guild's main headquarters, the 7 sages, all S-rank adventurers, were meeting on the top floor. Kurogane, head of the Monodo branch, and known as Iron, spoke to the group. He brought up the next topic: the Chaos Dragon killed at Nakano Train Yard, the break-in at the Shinjuku Synthesis Facility, which only certain ranks could enter, and the illegal raid on Tokyo Tower's Sky Castle dungeon. He said these 3 crimes, all within days, were most likely done by the same person, and they had to find them fast. The 5th sage, Tantalum, the King of Kings, asked if the Sky Castle dungeon had been fully checked, since it could be as hard as an S-rank dungeon. The 2nd sage, Platinum, also called the Oracle Deliverer, questioned whether one person could really clear a place like that alone. The 6th sage, Kiryu Miramasa, the Exalted Magic Swordsman, said it seemed impossible. The 3rd sage, 15 Vero Ounces, stayed quiet. The 1st sage, Q, the Omni Elemental, said this could be taken as a direct challenge to the guild's power, and that made it interesting. The 4th sage, Synchrin, the Psycho Witch, laughed and wondered what darkness that person was hiding. At last, the 7th sage, Tellurium, Akashic Vision, said they had found an observation target. Kurogane told them he was sure all 7 sages understood how serious this was. Once they found the unknown adventurer, he wanted to recruit that person into the guild's executive staff and train them for the coming Otherworld War. With that, Kurogane ended the meeting. The next day, a mother was out walking with her little daughter. For a moment, the mother got distracted by some flowers nearby, and her daughter wandered off after a blue butterfly without being noticed. The girl ran into the street, and a truck came racing straight at her. The driver shouted in panic when he saw her there. Hearing the horn, the mother turned and saw her daughter standing in the road. She ran for her, but she wasn't going to make it. The truck was almost there. The girl's balloon slipped into the air as disaster was seconds away. Then Haruto flashed in. He appeared right in front of the mother, with the child safe in his arms. The mother stood there in total shock. Once she realized it was really her daughter, she rushed over in tears. Haruto gently asked the girl if she was scared, and told her she was safe now. He set her down carefully, and the little girl thanked him. Her mother hugged her at once, crying with relief that she was okay. Haruto smiled, glad he had saved her just in time. At first he thought he might not make it, but his space-time magic pulled it off. All it cost was the girl's balloon and his drink. That was nothing compared to saving a life. He clenched his fist, feeling good that he had used his power to help someone. The mother turned to thank him properly, but Haruto waved it off and said it wasn't needed. She insisted a rescue like that couldn't be ignored and asked him to at least tell her his name. Haruto politely refused, saying he'd rather she forget it, since he already stood out too much. He grabbed his school bag and said he had to go. The mother called for him to wait, but he was already sprinting off so he wouldn't be late. A little later, he reached the Adventurer Cultivation Agency High School Division. He leaped across the buildings until he landed on the rooftop by his classroom. Looking down, he spotted the student council at the entrance, asking around for Haruto. He let out a tired sigh and headed to class, but the whispers and stares from his classmates didn't stop, and Haruto awkwardly thought he didn't need time magic to know everyone was watching him like a hawk. Meanwhile, Rena watched from the side, feeling like Haruto was drifting farther away again. It felt just like the day she ran into him after leaving the Adventurers Guild. She remembered what happened at the Shinjuku branch of the Adventurers Guild. There, she introduced herself as a student from the Cultivation Agency School in Nakano, and reported that she had cleared a B-rank dungeon. The clerk thanked her for the hard work, but just before she left, he asked if a student named Haruto went to her school. Caught off guard, she said yes, she knew someone by that name. He explained that Shinome from the weapon synthesis lab had built a new weapon theory from something called the Kyuju theory. And when he asked where it came from, Shinome said a student from Nakano gave him the clue. Even the clerk admitted it was hard to believe. Rina stared at Haruto, wondering how far he was going to go. After class, the teacher let everyone go for the morning, and reminded them an exchange student would be joining next week. At lunch, Haruto went back to the rooftop and checked the messages his future self had left behind. In one recording, his future self told him to focus first on sharpening his sword skills. In the end, he said space-time magic was only support magic. Haruto's real gift was the sword, and if he wanted to become a great space-time mage like him, he had to live by the blade first. The message ended by saying Haruto would understand later, then it vanished. Haruto lay back on the bench, annoyed at how vague his future self always was. He wished he'd just say things clearly. Somewhere else on campus, a dangerous figure had arrived. The man used stealing steps and flash stride. Haruto suddenly felt something and tensed up. When he turned, a man was already standing on the rooftop. Haruto pulled his sword from storage at once and faced him, demanding to know who he was. The stranger was Muramasa Kijuji, the sixth sage and exalted magic swordsman. He asked Haruto if he was the one, then said he needed his help. Muramasa fixed him with a serious look and said, "The world is close to destruction." Haruto realized he hadn't sensed Muramasa at all, until the man was right there. This guy was on a whole different level. Haruto asked if he really meant the end of the world, and what exactly he was talking about. Muramasa said he meant it exactly as it sounded. Soon everything Haruto cared about would be erased. That instantly made Haruto think of Rai. He leveled his sword and said there was no way he'd trust a claim like that from someone he didn't even know. The man had shown up out of nowhere and started talking like he was making threats, which reminded Haruto of his future self, someone he definitely didn't like. So Haruto made it clear he'd decide things for himself. Muramasa only smiled and pulled out a photo, asking if he still felt that way after seeing it. Haruto snapped when he saw Riel in the picture, practicing dance. Anger burst out of him as a fierce aura flared up. Even Muramasa was surprised. This wasn't normal fighting spirit, it was something abnormal. Still, he could tell Haruto had the makings of a real swordsman. He quickly assured him the photo was only part of a background check and that he hadn't laid a hand on his sister. Then Muramasa drew his sword and swore on his name as a swordmaster that he meant no harm. He moved past Haruto and added that if a fight was what it took to prove it, he'd take that challenge. That only made Haruto madder. He said Muramasa had gone too far. Muramasa leaped back and warned him not to regret what came later. As they prepared to clash, Muramasa activated killing intent. Haruto was stunned. There was no Chronos factor around Muramasa, so he couldn't read the flow of time. Seeing Haruto go quiet, Muramasa asked what was wrong, then said he was attacking whether Haruto was ready or not. In a blur, Muramasa vanished and appeared right in front of him. He explained that killing intent didn't mean showing murderous intent, it meant erasing his own presence. Then he swung at Haruto, who barely managed to leap, twist, and avoid the slash. Haruto realized Muramasa's skill was wiping out the Chronos factor nearby. He asked why Muramasa was calmly explaining his own powers, joking that he sounded like some dumb manga villain. Muramasa answered that it didn't matter. He could still win even after revealing them. By erasing his presence, he said, he could always take the first move. A second later, Muramasa was behind Haruto before he even noticed. As Haruto turned, Muramasa's blade cut across him. Muramasa smiled, sure he'd won. But then Haruto's body started fading. It was only a clone made with avatar replay. The real Haruto appeared behind Muramasa and brought his sword down. Muramasa bent away just in time, confused by what had happened. Annoyed that he missed, Haruto watched Muramasa jump back and open some distance. Still puzzled, Muramasa knew he should have cut Haruto for real, and wondered if that had been more than an afterimage. As he straightened up, 2 buttons dropped from his coat. Proof Haruto's last strike had connected. Haruto rushed in with quick body, closing the gap at high speed. As his sword came down, Muramasa sensed the power behind it and smiled, starting to enjoy the fight. He caught Haruto's blade with his own, and sparks burst from the clash. Muramasa looked him in the eye and asked what he'd do next. Since he couldn't rely on reading time flow, Haruto switched tactics. He nudged Muramasa's sword aside and used stop chain, freezing both Muramasa and his blade. Muramasa was shocked to find himself completely pinned. Haruto poured power into his fist, then lowered his body and fired a chrono fist. Muramasa froze for a split second, dropped his sword, and barely activated steel body in time. Haruto's punch landed with a huge blast and launched Muramasa away, though he wasn't hurt. Muramasa was impressed that wasn't some normal punch. He stared at Haruto and recognized him as an awakened one. Haruto clicked his tongue, frustrated that even that attack failed. Then Muramasa suddenly suggested they stop, which only confused him more. Muramasa walked up calmly and gave a sincere apology for bringing up his sister. He bowed deeply, asked forgiveness for crossing the line, and swore he wouldn't do it again. Haruto just stared, asking what this was all about. Muramasa picked up his sword and said he was leaving. Haruto shouted after him, asking why he was deciding that by himself the fight wasn't over. Muramasa agreed it wasn't settled, and said they could finish it at his school. More lost than ever, Haruto asked what he meant by that. Muramasa said Haruto's talent was special, but he was still too weak, and not yet where Muramasa wanted him to be. He told Haruto to come learn the secrets of the sword at his school, and grow stronger there. That made Haruto remember his future self's words, that his true gift was the sword, and if he wanted to become a great space-time mage, he had to live by the blade first. Still, Haruto said he couldn't trust him that easily. Muramasa agreed, but pointed out one simple fact: he was stronger than Haruto right now. Wasn't that enough? With that, Muramasa said he'd be waiting at his school, then disappeared. Still confused, Haruto felt something in his pocket, and pulled out an exchange student permit between his school and Azabu's school. Muramasa must have slipped it in during the fight, so that was the school he meant, Azabu. Haruto fumed, thinking Muramasa really knew how to get under his skin. Meanwhile, Muramasa stood by the school entrance, adjusting his coat. In his mind, Haruto was the real deal. Before the 7 sages could use him up like a pawn, Muramasa planned to train him himself. Then, once Haruto joined the 7 sages, he'd help him crush them and take their power. Silently, Muramasa swore to ruin Kyuju's plans. Back on the rooftop, Haruto looked over the exchange student permit. Its goal was to improve the real strength of adventurers from every school, and the program ran from July 1st to July 13th, 2054. It also said applicants had to be students from schools tied to the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, and student council members got grade A treatment and perks at the host school. While he was reading, Yuzuki burst onto the rooftop, shouting that she'd finally found him, and this time he was definitely joining the student council. Haruto stood and said her timing was perfect. Then he casually told Yuzuki he was in. She froze, stunned that he had actually agreed. A week later, at the Adventurer Cultivation Agency's Azabu branch, Haruto walked beside Yuzuki. She said she was amazed, not just because he joined the student council, but because he also wanted to go with her to Azabu as an exchange student. Haruto said that was only natural for a student council member, though really, he was after the grade A perks listed in the paper. Yuzuki explained that Azabu's school had produced many S-rank adventurers, and was seen as the best training school in Japan. She added that it was a super elite academy, and you needed a magic score above 70 to get in. Before they entered, Yuzuki turned to him with a grin and told him they'd better work hard so they wouldn't fall behind. Haruto awkwardly agreed, a little overwhelmed as they stepped inside and entered a huge lounge. Yuzuki said they should greet the board chairman first, then they headed through the lounge. Inside, the other students stared at them, clearly wondering who these strangers were. Haruto ignored it and decided to just do things his way. Noticing he felt uneasy, Yuzuki quickly told him not to worry. She said she was with him. Haruto nodded, though he still wondered if Yuzuki would really be fine at a place like this. They reached the board chairman's office on the 20th floor. Yuzuki pointed it out, and Haruto knocked. When they went in, Muramasa was already there, waiting for them. He introduced himself as the chairman of the school. That left Haruto stunned. This really was Muramasa's school. Muramasa got up and welcomed them to Azabu's school. He explained that while mages were at their peak, this place focused only on training swordsmen. Even within the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, it stood apart. Instead of magic matches, they settled things with sword duels, and during the exchange program, he expected them to climb the rankings that way. Haruto froze when Muramasa pointed straight at him, but before he could answer, Yuzuki hurriedly told Muramasa to wait a second, saying that wasn't supposed to be part of the exchange program. Haruto cut in and asked if joining meant he could fight Muramasa again. Yuzuki blinked in confusion and asked what he meant by again. Muramasa explained that whoever reached rank 1 earned the right to challenge the strongest person at Azabu, him. Hearing that, Haruto lit up. He said that was exactly what he wanted, and he'd reach the top fast, beat Muramasa, and head home. Yuzuki panicked at once. Haruto added that his only issue was their last fight ending halfway. Once they finished it, he said he'd have no reason to stay. Muramasa didn't mind. He said the school welcomed any swordsman aiming for the top, no matter their attitude. Then he pulled up the system and gave them their student IDs and class schedules. With those, he explained, they could use the school's facilities and gear, with extra benefits for student council members. Haruto checked his profile, and saw his swordsman course adventurer level was 98, putting him at 4,395th out of 14,000 students. That ranking also came with better privileges. He wondered if this system worked like Nakano's, and if the fastest way up was challenging stronger students one by one. Once everything was done, Muramasa wished them luck and sent them off. In the hallway, Yuzuki burst out that this was ridiculous, and asked how she was supposed to aim for the top ranks. Haruto agreed, saying the brand new student council president didn't need to do that at all. He started thinking about the fastest way to climb, trying to guess where top students would gather. Special lecture rooms, student council rooms, duel arenas, the martial arts club building, classrooms, the cafeteria, the event hall. even the chairman's office. Smiling to himself, Haruto decided to check them out. A little later, they arrived at the cafeteria on the second floor, packed with students eating. Yuzuki asked if he skipped breakfast, and he simply answered, yes. Right then, a virtual robot popped up beside them, welcomed them, and asked if they were exchange students from another part of Japan. The robot said the school's motto was that breakfast decides your whole day, and urged students to eat well. If they missed breakfast at home, they could eat as much as they wanted there. Haruto noticed a hologram maid, scanning their IDs and giving them custom announcements. Seeing the huge menu, Yuzuki asked if all of it was really free, and was amazed by how rich elite schools were. She grabbed a pair of tongs and declared it was time to inspect everything. Watching the fully automated setup and perfectly balanced meals, she called it her dream cafeteria, and said their school needed this system right away. Haruto just watched the new student council president, being her usual odd self. Then he remembered why he had really come to the cafeteria. A sudden crash pulled his attention away, followed by a guy mocking someone for having something he didn't deserve. Haruto looked over and saw a group of boys picking on one student. The victim nervously begged them to stop, but the leader sneered that a wimp like him didn't deserve this sword. The student begged for it back, and the leader barked at him to shut up, saying this was punishment for sitting in the Rito faction seats. Just like Haruto expected, even an elite school had bullies. No matter where you go, teachers can't catch everything. The cafeteria was the perfect place for that kind of trouble, so in a way, Haruto was glad he found them this fast. The leader mocked the student, saying he wasn't allowed in the cafeteria unless his rank was at least 2 digits, then asked if he didn't know that. The student stammered that seats shouldn't matter in a cafeteria, but the leader grabbed him and shouted that they did, calling him a god of plagues with 0 magic power. That phrase caught Haruto's attention. Then the leader shoved the student to the floor, and the people around them laughed. That was enough for Haruto. The leader smirked and said handing over the sword would be wasted on him, so he was keeping it. One of the other bullies said the sword looked expensive, and that selling it at the guild shop would boost the Rito faction's budget. The leader casually told the student to get lost, but the student, still shaking, yelled back for his sword. He said it was precious because his father had given it to him. That only made the leader angrier, even hearing about the student's personal situation. The student braced himself and turned his face, ready for the hit, but the punch never landed. Haruto stepped in and caught it with one hand, leaving both boys stunned. The leader shouted, demanding to know who Haruto was, shocked his punch had been stopped so easily. Haruto calmly said he was an exchange student from Nakano, and that he was looking for the highest-ranked student in the school. Then he asked where to find that person. The leader snapped that he had no reason to answer. Haruto responded by tightening his grip on the guy's fist, forcing him to his knees with a scream. Haruto said asking a hot-blooded guy like him seemed like the quickest way to find the top student. The leader's underlings panicked and asked what Haruto had done and what he wanted, but Haruto only glared at them and repeated his question. Now terrified, the leader hesitated. Then a loud voice cut in. That's enough. A sword came flying straight at Haruto, and he barely jumped back in time. When he looked up, he sensed a faint invisible blade still aimed at him, like he had almost been cut. The real head of the Rito faction had arrived, Nobunaga. In a cold voice, he warned Haruto not to bully his fellow students. Nobunaga was a third-year student and leader of the Rito faction. Even the school had trouble handling him, but his skill was close to the top-ranked students, making him a likely future instructor after graduation. The bullied student could barely believe that Nobunaga was now facing an exchange student. Nobunaga asked how things got this far, and Haruto calmly answered that the faction members were bullying that student, pointing him out, and he had only stepped in to stop them. Annoyed, Nobunaga turned to his men and asked if that was true. They denied everything, saying the exchange student was lying, and they were only saving seats for the faction. Irritated, Nobunaga walked up to his men and punched one of them, then dropped the others too, leaving all 3 on the floor. He snapped that their eyes made it obvious they were lying. Then he picked up the student's sword, bowed, and apologized for what his members had done, saying he was sorry as their leader. Haruto told him there was no need to apologize and that it wasn't a big issue. Nobunaga handed the sword back, and the student thanked him right away. Haruto was honestly surprised that someone this direct and decent was leading the faction. After straightening up, Nobunaga said he would have rather ended things peacefully and enjoyed his day, but if he let this pass, the faction would lose face. So he challenged Haruto to a duel and asked if he accepted. The bullied student, clearly worried, urged Haruto to refuse and reminded him that Nobunaga was ranked 3rd in the school. Haruto accepted right away, telling Nobunaga he'd gladly fight him. Nobunaga thanked him, said that made things simpler, and walked off, telling Haruto he'd be waiting at the arena after class. Haruto watched him leave for a moment. Then the bullied student came over, nervously asking if Haruto would really be okay. Still shaken, he explained again that Nobunaga was the 3rd-ranked swordsman, and asked why Haruto would accept something so dangerous. Instead of answering, Haruto asked if he was really okay with how things were. He pointed out that if nobody stopped them, those bullies would keep tormenting him all through high school. Clutching his sword tightly, the student said he was used to putting up with it and had hoped it would stop someday. At that moment, the sword started giving off magic, and Haruto noticed. Using his eye of time, he recognized the magic inside it. Then Haruto spoke straight to him, no to the real one inside, and asked how it felt when his sword was something deeper had pushed him. The student went silent, and Haruto pressed him, asking if he truly wanted things to stay like this forever. After a pause, the student admitted he didn't want to keep enduring it. He wanted to fight back and protect his sword. Haruto smiled, praised that answer, and held out his hand, asking for his name. The student shook it, and introduced himself as Ibuki. Haruto gave his own name, then urged Ibuki to challenge the bully leader to a duel. Ibuki was stunned, but Haruto told him not to worry, he'd make sure he won. He said they should both go win their matches. Ibuki agreed with a nod. Then Haruto's phone started buzzing non-stop. Yuzuki was asking where he went, and complaining she was still eating. That made him let out a tired sigh. Later in the arena waiting room, Yuzuki rushed in and yelled, asking what Haruto was thinking. He'd really agreed to a sword duel on his first day as an exchange student. Haruto tried to calm her down, and just said a lot had happened, which only made her more annoyed. She asked if that was seriously his whole explanation, and Haruto reminded her the board chairman had told them to aim for the top. So he figured the fastest way up was to challenge the student ranked third. Yuzuki grabbed her head and groaned, shocked it had been that easy for him to set up a duel. Haruto added that he planned to reach rank 1, challenge the board chairman, beat him, and go home right after. Hearing that, Ibuki stared at him in disbelief and asked if he meant it. Then he settled down and admitted that if anyone could do it, it might be Haruto. He said beating the board chairman as a Zabu school student would make history. Ibuki added that Haruto might even get the legendary skill cube. Curious, Haruto asked what that was, since he'd never heard of it. Ibuki explained that the school's founder, Kiryu Keijimitsu, mastered the secrets of the sword and stored them in a skill cube. That caught Haruto off guard. He remembered Muramasa telling him to uncover the sword's secrets at this school. Haruto asked what exactly was inside the cube, and Ibuki said it held a special sword skill only Keijimitsu ever learned, the dimensional slash. Haruto was stunned, and asked if it could really cut through dimensions. Ibuki nodded and said that was the rumor, though nobody had actually seen it used. Haruto started wondering if that power could help his future self. That made him even more set on winning. Clenching his fist, he said he was fired up. Now, but before that he told Ibuki he'd be the opening act. Ibuki stammered, then agreed. Nervously, he said he'd do his best. He also said the bully got furious when he challenged him to a duel, then asked Haruto if he had some secret plan to help him win. Haruto said yes. If Ibuki followed his instructions, he'd definitely win. Then he asked to see Ibuki's sword. Later, at the Azabu branch arena of the Adventurer Cultivation Agency, students packed around the stage cheering as Ibuki faced the bully. The bully aimed his sword at Ibuki and mocked him for issuing the challenge. He promised to beat him badly, and even though Ibuki looked shaken, he said nothing. From the crowd, Yuzuki nervously asked Haruto if Ibuki would really be okay. Haruto calmly said he'd be fine and could handle it. A little earlier, Haruto had given Ibuki one simple plan. The instant the match started, draw his sword and slash in one smooth motion, no hesitation. Ibuki had asked if that was really all. Haruto said yes. The bully would probably rush him right away because he thought Ibuki was weak. He told Ibuki to keep his eyes on the enemy, face forward, and use one clean draw slash without doubting himself. If he did that, he'd win. Ibuki agreed, saying he trusted Haruto's advice. Back in the present, Haruto watched from the side with a smile and called out that Ibuki could do it. On the other side of the stage, Muramasa quietly watched the duel about to begin. The host introduced the fighters. Mitsurugi Ibuki from Class 2 Fahrenheit, ranked 3,424 in the swordsman course, and Kenju Kentaro from Class 2A, ranked 153rd. With a mocking smile, Kentaro told Ibuki that after he won, they should keep getting along. Ibuki stayed quiet for a second, then answered, "Got it," and added that if he won, Kentaro had to leave him alone forever. Then he shouted and called Kentaro a shithead. Kentaro instantly got mad and yelled back at his nerve. The crowd was stunned by Ibuki's outburst, but Haruto just smiled with pride. Ibuki took a deep breath, gripped his sword and got ready. Kentaro opened his inventory, as the host announced the start of the match, pulled out a second sword, and aimed both at Ibuki. Haruto was surprised to see Kentaro using two swords, wondering if he was skilled or just reckless. Then Kentaro rushed at Ibuki, exactly like Haruto predicted. Ibuki remembered the warning not to look away from his opponent, so he kept his eyes locked on Kentaro. Then he remembered the next step, drew his sword, and unleashed a strong draw slash. Kentaro, caught off guard by how fast it was, tried to block with both blades, but Ibuki's strike cut through them anyway. Kentaro was blasted backward into the wall, coughed up blood, and collapsed unconscious. His two lackeys were stunned, while their leader Nobunaga just sighed in disappointment. The host declared Mitsurugi Ibuki the winner, and the crowd burst into cheers. Amazed, Yuzuki told Haruto that Ibuki had actually won. Haruto said that was expected, and explained that Ibuki's sword was a magic sword. Yuzuki was shocked to hear that. Earlier, Haruto had secretly used Eye of Time to check the sword's properties, and found it had a rare special effect. Despite what everyone believed, Ibuki didn't have zero magic. His sword had been constantly draining his magic, which made his score seem low. On top of that, the sword could release all the magic it stored from Ibuki in one burst. Since he'd carried it for 3 years without killing a monster, it had built up a huge amount of power. Ibuki apparently didn't know the sword was magical, but Haruto figured a win was still a win. A little later in the lounge, Ibuki excitedly thanked Haruto and said the win was all thanks to him. Ever since Haruto showed up, one amazing thing after another had happened. Haruto brushed that off and said it was Ibuki's own strength. He decided to explain the sword's magic later when they had time. Then he turned to Ibuki and said now it was his turn in the arena. Back there, Muramasa watched closely from above. Nobunaga told Haruto he would fight seriously because the dignity of the Rido faction was on the line. Haruto answered that he wouldn't want it any other way. Both of them drew their swords. Nobunaga rested his on his shoulder, while Haruto kept his low at his side. They faced each other with determined smiles, ready to fight. When the match began, Haruto noticed Nobunaga didn't move first, and just stood there calmly. Yuzuki and Ibuki watched anxiously, while the Rido faction, including a bandaged Kentaro, waited for their leader to win. Muramasa said nothing, and kept watching. Haruto tried to read Nobunaga's plan. His stance looked full of openings. Even so, Haruto decided not to hold back and rushed in, but froze when Nobunaga started smiling and released a heavy familiar pressure. Haruto recognized that same crushing aura from before. He stopped mid-charge and activated Eye of Time to examine Nobunaga. To his surprise, there was no Chronos factor around him. He started to think Azabu's top swordsman used killing intent instead of time-based power, which made his usual time flow reading useless. Nobunaga then stepped forward slowly, stopped right in range, exhaled, and used a Kishin-style secret art. It was a shapeless attack called Aesthetics of Nature, and deep cuts ripped across the stage as invisible blades slashed everywhere. Haruto jumped to avoid them, but Nobunaga appeared above him at once, blocking his escape. Haruto barely caught the sudden strike with his sword, and braced with all his strength, which seemed to impress Nobunaga. Haruto took the chance, and drove a chrono fist at Nobunaga's chest. Nobunaga used Steel Body just in time and took it head-on. To Haruto's shock, it did no damage at all. Both fighters jumped back to reset. Nobunaga praised Haruto for handling the Kishin-style's invisible slashes, and wondered how far his skills went. Haruto was speechless. His chrono fist hadn't left a mark. Nobunaga explained that his sword style trained more than sword skill. It also forged the body, until it became as tough and sharp as a blade. Hearing that, Haruto took a breath and told himself to trust his instincts instead of relying on Eye of Time. Seeing Haruto clear his head, Nobunaga sharpened his own focus. Haruto activated Quick Body, while Nobunaga used Stealthy Steps, and both shot their speed even higher. Haruto rushed in with a heavy slash, but Nobunaga slipped past it, and answered with a sharp counter. Haruto blocked, then twisted in mid-air and struck again. Nobunaga bent backward to avoid it, planting his sword into the ground to steady himself. From there, he kicked Haruto away. Haruto managed to stop himself and regain his stance. Tightening his grip, he admitted Nobunaga was strong. Still, he stepped in again, sure he would win. Haruto swung his sword back to build power, and struck at Nobunaga, who blocked with ease. Nobunaga shoved forward with a fierce slash, daring Haruto to take it directly. Haruto jumped back to avoid it, and before landing, swung again with another powerful strike. Nobunaga blocked that too. The watching students were completely drawn in, barely able to follow the speed of the fight. They expected Nobunaga to be amazing, but now they were all wondering who this exchange student really was. Panicking, Yuzuki yelled that things had gotten way too intense, and maybe the whole exchange student program needed a review. Ibuki kept cheering for Haruto, while the Rido faction shouted for Nobunaga. Haruto told himself he could not lose. He had to save his future self, and this match was part of that path. Nobunaga seemed to feel that resolve, and said Haruto was carrying something heavy. He respected that, but he had his own reasons, and couldn't lose either. Nobunaga raised the pressure around them even more, pouring in all his will, and Haruto was shaken by the weight of it. Then, driven by his own burden, Nobunaga charged in again. As Nobunaga moved, memories came rushing back. When he was 8, he told his mother he was heading to school. She answered with a gentle smile. But when he got to class, his desk was covered in cruel graffiti, telling him to get out, calling him poor, a delinquent, and worse. His classmates mocked him, fake pitying him, and acting like they had no idea who did it. Nobunaga said nothing. He just sat there while they laughed. Later, back home, he heard his mother begging a man for more time to pay back a loan. The man said he understood she was only covering for her missing husband, but the debt was still on her. She bowed her head and promised to find the money. Seeing her like that filled Nobunaga with rage. He ran to a nearby park and took it out on a punching bag tied to a tree, swearing he'd get strong enough to change their lives and protect his family. As the years passed, Nobunaga became a boxer, and he kept winning. After every match, when he took his prize money, he told himself the same thing. He still needed more strength to protect the people he loved. One day, as he left the ring, Muramasa was waiting in the hallway. He recognized Nobunaga as the former middle school kid who had become an undefeated star in underground boxing. Asking if he was Rito Nobunaga, Muramasa got a guarded reply. "Who are you?" Muramasa said he had watched the fight and praised Nobunaga's body, but warned that his talent would be wasted like this. That set Nobunaga off, but Muramasa calmly asked if he was fighting for money to support his family. Nobunaga, angry now, demanded answers, and Muramasa only smiled, handing him an envelope, an invitation to learn the Kishin sword style. As Nobunaga opened it, Muramasa explained the style was perfect for someone with his skill in combat, and said to come find him after mastering it. Then he held out his hand, welcomed Nobunaga to Azabu School, and offered a full scholarship. Nobunaga slapped the hand away, crushed the envelope, and brushed the whole thing off as shady, maybe even a scam, but the chance to get stronger pulled at him. In the end, he accepted, saying he'd do whatever it took to gain that power. 2 years later, Nobunaga had mastered the Kishin style. It was proof of the strength he'd chased his whole life, and he finally understood why Muramasa had brought him to Azabu. At a school where everything was settled by the sword, kids with painful pasts and rough tempers naturally gathered. Muramasa wanted Nobunaga to lead them, and before long, he was the head of the school's delinquents. Muramasa was still hard to read, but he had given Nobunaga a way to make money and clear his family's debt. For that, Nobunaga was deeply thankful. To outsiders, his group looked like a bunch of troublemakers, but to him, they were people like him, broken in different ways, just trying to survive. With that in his heart, Nobunaga shouted during the match that he was not going to lose. The sudden burst caught Haruto off guard. Then Nobunaga used the Kishin style's secret move, Scenic Beauty, and the pressure from his sword surged to another level. Haruto was stunned by how much power was pouring off that blade. He knew that if this kept up, Nobunaga's raw force would crush him. Looking into Nobunaga's eyes, Haruto felt a kind of honesty he had never seen in an opponent before. Since he couldn't depend on his time powers, so Haruto activated Chaos Sword and met Nobunaga head-on. He poured everything he had into the blade, remembering his future self's words. If he wanted to become a great space-time mage, he first had to live by the sword. Nobunaga was surprised to see Haruto grinning in the middle of the clash. Their blades smashed together and threw both of them back. Nobunaga understood that feeling, and excitement rose in him too. Both rushed in again, putting everything into one more strike. When their swords met, the impact set off a huge blast and covered the arena in smoke. The crowd froze. Yuzuki and Ibuki watched in panic, and Nobunaga's followers were just as worried about their leader. Muramasa alone stayed quiet, waiting for the result. When the smoke finally cleared, both fighters were still standing at center stage, but Nobunaga's sword was broken, and blood was running from his wounds. He could hardly believe it. Haruto had cut through his steel body, something he thought no one could do. As Nobunaga fell, he admitted to himself that Haruto's sword power had no limit, maybe even beyond the board chairman's. The host could barely get the words out as he named Kyuju Haruto the winner, and after a moment of silence, the crowd exploded. Yuzuki looked like she might faint from the shock, while Haruto stayed calm, watching Nobunaga as the healers rushed over. Muramasa was quietly impressed. Haruto had beaten the third-ranked Nobunaga mostly with sword skill alone. To him, that proved Haruto really was the awakened one, and maybe the best hope against the enemies that had haunted Azabu for 50 years. Meanwhile, Haruto looked at his shaking hand and thought back on the fight. He hadn't expected it to be so thrilling, and for a moment he just enjoyed the rush of such a fierce battle. Later, outside the academy, Haruto stood there speechless as Nobunaga and his group bowed together and apologized for all the trouble they had caused. Haruto said it was fine now, and Ibuki backed him up with a nod. Nobunaga lifted his head and thanked him for not making things worse. Then, grinning, he threw an arm over Haruto's shoulder and admitted that losing that badly somehow felt refreshing. Haruto was thrown off by how fast Nobunaga had bounced back, but when he noticed the other students staring, he awkwardly asked Nobunaga to calm down a little, because he didn't want any more attention. Nobunaga laughed and pulled back, telling him not to be so shy. Since the Rito faction had officially lost, he said, they would now support Haruto and help whenever he asked. Caught off guard, Haruto nodded and said he got it. He added that if he was ever in real trouble, he'd call on them. Nobunaga eagerly promised they could count on his group. The next day at his apartment, Haruto watched the news. It said crime across Japan was still going down, but damage from monster species leaving dungeons was rising every year, so police and the self-defense force were asking for closer work with the Adventurers Guild. The report added that, according to guild data, Japan's GDP had grown by more than 10% a year since dungeons appeared around the world, 30 years ago. After paying respects to his parents, Haruto picked up his bag while the broadcast explained that Japan's many dungeon experts had given the country an edge. The government had poured support into companies and universities to build anti-monster gear and magic stone tech. handed Haruto his lunch, and he thanked her. As he put on his shoes, she asked if he was going to Azabu again today. He said yes. He was still doing the exchange program. Ri smiled and said the school looked so amazing that she wished she could see it at least once. Haruto laughed, saying the inside was more old-fashioned than she might think, though he admitted they treated him like royalty there. Ri smiled and said it sounded nice for him to enjoy a normal school life. Her bright smile warmed Haruto, and he agreed. Then he asked if she was really starting middle school that day. She said yes, but since she only remembered elementary school, she still had a lot to catch up on. Haruto patted her head, told her he'd be cheering for her, and said they should both do their best, while quietly promising she'd never have to feel that kind of sadness again. Later, near Azabu School, Haruto heard a woman yelling for someone to let her go. A man had grabbed her arm and demanded to know if she understood how much money he'd spent on her. Some students nearby started whispering and recognized her as Malulu, the famous influencer with over 3 million followers, who was about to debut as a singer. Haruto looked back, decided it wasn't his problem, and kept walking. At the same time, Malulu broke free and snapped at the man for jumping her like that, mocking him for being desperate enough to try and keep her all to himself. Furious, he shouted that a newly found dungeon was nearby, and it was dangerous, but she kept running, until something ahead made her stop cold. A dungeon gate had opened right in front of her, and monsters were coming out. They were Imperial Centipedes, B-class annihilation monsters with a subjugation rank of 5, and a recommended raid level of 1,200, enough to leave her frozen in fear. Malulu dropped to the ground, crying and unable to move as the giant centipedes came closer. The people around her panicked too, shouting over why monsters had appeared outside the dungeon. Some guessed they were migrating species, and then everyone ran for their lives, leaving Malulu behind. As one centipede opened its jaws and lunged, the crowd screamed, sure she was dead. Then Haruto jumped in. Just before it could bite down, the ground burst under its head, which had already been sliced off in a single strike. Green blood sprayed everywhere. The crowd stared in shock as the monster thrashed. Haruto calmly picked Malulu up and carried her away. When she opened her eyes, she was stunned to find herself in his arms. He gently set her down and told her to run, then turned away, leaving her speechless. Haruto stopped near the centipede and hesitated. He didn't want more trouble, but he also knew he wouldn't sleep well if he left these people to die. Then he saw the severed head start to regenerate and reconnect to the body. The monster could heal itself. Right then, a group of adventurers arrived. Their leader quickly checked the scene and asked if everyone was all right. They said they were from the Monado district branch of the Adventurers Guild. After noticing Haruto, they told him to get back or he'd be killed. One adventurer quickly told the leader the monster was a B-class annihilation target, with a subjugation rank of S, and it needed a raid level above 1,000. The leader looked worried. Their party's average level was only 80, so he didn't think they could win. Another member said they should call the 7 sages, but the leader shut that down, yelling they wouldn't make it in time. With no better option, the party got ready to fight anyway. Even knowing how bad the odds were, Haruto stayed back and watched, ready to protect everyone if needed. Then one centipede head shot toward 2 adventurers, and they raised their guard even though they knew they were outmatched. A chain suddenly appeared, and stopped the monster in midair. Haruto had used his stop chain skill. The adventurers stared in confusion, wondering who had just saved them. Not caring if he drew attention, Haruto used space-time magic to lock the creature down tighter. Then he activated Quick Body and rushed forward at incredible speed. Feeling the danger, the centipede turned its head and spat toxic fluid at him. Haruto dodged, jumping away just in time, and saw the ground melt where it landed. He instantly realized it was corrosive poison, and decided he had to end this without letting the damage spread. But in the next moment, the monster popped up beneath him with its jaws open and snapped down, looking like it had cut him in half. Then Haruto disappeared like an afterimage. The creature was stunned. He had survived by using Avatar Replay. The one it hit was only an echo of Haruto from 0.3 seconds earlier. Haruto took that opening and swung hard, cutting off the monster's head in one clean strike. The party leader could only stare as the huge head crashed down, while Malulu watched in shock and awe. Haruto then walked over to the severed head,